Central Standard Time, so let's get this meeting going. This is the Journey meeting. This is our 5th meeting since we started this in January of 2021. I'm David Knight with Project JFK CSI Dallas, and joining me is Casey Quinlan, and our other co-director, Brian Edwards, is with us. We still have some more people that are signed up that are getting in, so we're just going to let them into the meeting as we go along. I want to thank everybody that attended our spring conference 2 weeks ago, the people that spoke at our conference, and also the people that were attending it and viewing it. It was a great success, and we look forward to doing our November conference. I want to talk about a special thing that's going to be coming up in 2 weeks. So I'm going to share a screen and show you what's coming up. Okay, in 2 weeks, we are going to be having another Journey meeting. And the Journey meeting that we're going to be having is on May 29th, 2021, from 1 o'clock Central Standard Time until approximately 4 o'clock. It could end a little earlier, but I know we're going to have about 45 minutes to an hour pre-recorded lecture from Dr. John Newman. And then we're going to break. We're going to have Q&A during the first part, and then we're going to come back. We're going to show part 2, and then John is going to he's going to answer questions on part 2, and then we can have a discussion. It is strictly going to be it's not like our normal Journey meetings that we've been having. This one is going to focus strictly on one presenter. He does have PowerPoints that he's going to show in the videos, and everybody will hold their questions until we break between the 2 parts. And then if you have any questions, that'll be the time to talk to him, but he will be live with us after the pre-recorded videos. So again, it's May 29th, 2021, in 2 weeks. That's going to be Saturday from 1 o'clock until 4. And I want to thank Dr. Newman and promote this. So if you guys would like, this is going to be up on the website by Monday morning. You'll be able to get your tickets to that event starting on Monday. It may go up a little sooner, but I'm hoping Monday will be the day when this kicks off. And tell your friends, tell your people on social media that you're friends with, so that way we can have a large audience and make a nice warm welcome to Dr. John Newman. The next screen share that I'm going to show you guys, of course, is Project JFK CSI Dallas's website at projectjfk.com. On the home page, if you'd like to donate to our cause and help us, there is a Donate Now button done through PayPal that anybody can donate anything they would like to help keep things going. I do want to thank two of our people that join us that has gifted money to us, Larry Snaff and Brooks LaPlante. I want to thank those guys for helping us out. Without you guys, it makes it a little difficult to keep things going, but we keep the lights on, so to speak. Also, I want to show on the events tab, we have, I just updated this morning, so this shows today's details of event. The previous lectures, if you missed, I'm sorry, not previous lectures, but previous meetings from February, March, and April are online, so you can go and watch. And then the chat logs have great information, links, and so on from people that are presenting, also people that are in the audience that want to talk about things. You can download their chat logs in text form, and then you can usually highlight and go to different links. Everything that is on these are good links. They're not full of viruses or anything like that. Bart Kemp does a great job of sharing things of documents that you can get that's in his collection. So again, you can find that on the events tab. Starting on Monday, like I say, you're going to have a way to get the tickets for May 29th, and then that will also be listing the next live Journey meeting like what we're having today. You'll be able to get your tickets to that as well. So Again, anybody that wants to join us, please do. They're free events. And with that, I'm going to okay, I want to turn it over to Brian Edwards for a few minutes. He's got some exciting news for us, so we're going to turn it over to Brian, and he can tell us what he knows. Brian?
Well, thanks, David. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Some of you may know, and some of you may not know, that we are, David and Casey and I are scanning the entire Dick Russell collection. Bigger than we thought it was going to be, but it's a process. We're working on that. And we are in negotiations with, or I've been in negotiations with Mary Goolsby from Baylor. They want us to do Bob Cutler's collection and Penn Jones's collection after we get Dick Russell's done. So we got more scanning to do, lots of good documents and collections to put up on the website. So that's coming up hopefully by this summer. We'll see how long it takes us to get Dick Russell's collection. We just found out that, let's see, David, how many boxes do we have? I think we have, what, 30, 35 or 40 boxes with two large containers. This size of box, two of these in every box. We've got over 40 boxes. And then we were just notified last week that Dick has 8 or 10 5-drawer filing cabinets full of documents that he wants us to add to the collection. So it may be a while before we get everything done, but the good news is Mary Goolsby is allowing us, she's going to collect all of the Cutler collection and the Penn Jones collection, which I can imagine, I don't have any idea how many boxes that's going to contain, but they want us to put those up on our website and scan those for everybody. So that's coming up this summer. Hopefully we'll get that started.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you. That's very exciting, and it adds to my to-do list now. So
yeah, like we don't have enough to do, but that's okay. That's what we do. That's what we do here.
That's right. Well, anything else that you'd like to add, Brian?
No, I think that's good. I think we're just trying to keep up with the scanning, 5 or 6 hours a day. And on the weekends, it's, I know what Bart's going through, trying to get through all this documentation. My problem is I start scanning something and I pull it out of the scanner and I go, well, that's interesting. So I'll sit there and read half the box before I put it back in the scanner. So I'm trying not to do that anymore. I just want to take it out of the box, throw it in the scanner, put it back in the box, and move on to the next one. So anyway, there's a lot of good information in Dick Russell's collection.
All right. Well, yeah, we're definitely. I've got some more boxes I've got to exchange with you and keep scanning away. Actually, I'm getting ready to trade in my scanner and get me another new one. So hopefully I'll get that done today or tomorrow. I would like to let everybody know that Dealey Plaza UK later on this summer, I don't know if it's going to be next month or July or August, but I know that we have been invited, Project JFK, CSI Dallas, myself, Casey, and Brian, to present during their monthly meeting. So as soon as I have details on when that is going to be, I'll be putting up a link and details on that on our website at projectjfk.com. With that, I've got Larry Snaff in the audience with us today. And Larry has a update for us on PIDB, FOIA, and a letter to Biden, etc. So, Larry, go ahead and take it away, buddy.
Okay, you can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, big week coming up. Tuesday, which is May 18th, the Public Interest Declassification Board is having a public meeting. And the JFK records are going to be on the agenda. Supposedly, David Ferrara, the archivist of the Archives of the United States, the guy who's in charge of the National Archives, is supposed to be making a presentation. My merry band of lawyers are coming up with questions to ask him, very pointed questions, although neutral questions, because we don't want to, he's actually an ally. His hands are somewhat tied. So If any of you want to participate, you should go to the public information public interest declassification board. It's on NARA's website, and you can register for the event. We're still not quite sure about the logistics of how to submit questions. You can submit questions, I think, when you register. Mark Zaid, who's been an extremely helpful member of our group, knows the chair of that board, so he's been helping us get on the agenda, and I'm hoping that maybe he can sprinkle some black magic and get our questions to the front of the queue. So that's Tuesday. I think it's from 1 to 2:30 Eastern time. So that should be interesting. Haven't heard back yet from either congressional committee on our request for an oversight hearing, but there are 3 members of Congress on the PIDB board, so we're hoping to embarrass them to get Congress to take some action. This week, I submitted a FOIA request to NARA asking for the documents underlying the decision to postpone for the archivist's recommendation to the president to postpone the release of the records until this year. Also got a hold of the Office of Legal Counsel within the Office of President when he that made the original recommendation to do the temporary certification in October of 2017. It's clear that we've had 4 lawyers look at it, and we all agreed that the memo was not a neutral memo in terms of trying to truly evaluate the statute. It was designed to give the president the basis to do a temporary certification. I'm trying to dig up so the FOIA request is to get any correspondence. Also, we want to get copies of any requests that the agencies made when they proposed postponement. In theory, they were supposed to make a record by record weighing of the harms versus the public interest. I doubt that was done. We're trying to use the FOIA mechanism as a form of discovery, because I think we're going to be headed for litigation. So basically asking for all the correspondence, the memos, anything that was generated in connection with the archivist's recommendation, which, by the way, that wasn't part of the statute. There was nothing about the archivist making a recommendation. I think, and many of us lawyers think, that the recommendation was a whole setup, that there was the straw man that they wanted the archivist to recommend to the president so he could then postpone for 3 more years. So now Jeff Morley just told us this week, excuse me, he had filed a FOIA request in 2018. He was just notified that he went from 100 to 63 in the queue. So they're taking their sweet time in processing his request. So we're probably going to file a lawsuit next week or the week after to get his request expedited. Mark Zaid has agreed to do it as long as we just pay for his costs. So I think we have to talk about it next week, but I think once I see what his FOIA request was, if it's as broad as mine and covers the same material, we'll just piggyback on that one and then file a lawsuit to try to get those records. Along those lines, David and Brian might be interested in this. I have found the string of memos in the White House in 1965, where the process of developing the guidelines for releasing the Warren records and the whole dispute about whether they were classified or not. Basically what happened was when the Warren Commission submitted their records to NARA, the National Archives, in after they prepared their report, issued their report. The National Archives immediately said this is investigative files, therefore they're subject to a 75-year rule. There was a mayor from a town in Iowa that felt that this was a terrible thing, and he wrote a letter to the president. That prompted McGeorge Bundy to contact Nicholas Katzenbach and ask for a review of the policy. So Nicholas Katzenbach did a review, and then in March of 1965, they then came up with a proposed guidelines, and that became the guidelines that were used to release Warren Commission records, and they were reviewed in 5-year batches, like 65. Well, they did a 65, 67, and 70, and then it took them a couple years to release what they had reviewed. But that's the chronology of how we got from a classification situation. It's clear that the Warren Commission had no authority to classify its records. Now, question whether the records that were submitted by the FBI and the CIA, that's a separate question, but their own records never should have been classified. They tried to go under this 1953 executive order that President Eisenhower had issued. Anyway, so I'm going to be sending you you guys those materials since they're historic and you're building a historic database. So the next thing, so after the FOIA, the next thing we're going to do, we are in the process of drafting a letter to President Biden with the legal memorandum asking him to expunge or revoke President Trump's executive order certifying the postponement on the grounds that it was done illegally, that it did not comply with the act. We are this weekend working on the legal memo, and we hope to get this out to the president by Memorial Day, before Memorial Day. We got 2 lawyers drafting the memo, and then it's going to get reviewed by the rest of us. So there's going to be some action in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, Congress takes a break for Memorial Day. They take a break for July 4th, and then they take a summer recess. So I'm not optimistic that we're going to get an oversight hearing before September at the earliest. We're probably going to have to file a lawsuit, and we're anticipating at this point probably August, but it's still in flux. It's going to seek a writ of mandamus, which is an order from a court for an agency to take action. We're also going to try to use the Administrative Procedures Act. There's a procedure there. There's a mechanism there for an order as well from a court. And then we're going to try to create some new law. And although there was some cases that previously ruled that there was no private right of action under the JFK Act, for my environmental experience, we've found remedial statutes, which this statute is. It's designed to address a problem that courts usually broadly construe those. I think those decisions were in error, or at least biased because they were from the DC Circuit. So we're going to look for a liberal circuit, probably the 9th Circuit, and probably the Northern Circuit, the Northern District of California, to see if we can get a better ruling. But that would be wonderful. We got that, because I know Jim Lazar tried to get that, and he failed. And then Eddie Lopez tried again in 2018, and he failed. But I think maybe having a different forum, different venue, in a more liberal jurisdiction might help us, and using the analogy we use to other laws. So those are the things that my merry band of lawyers are doing. I still encourage any of you that have representatives that are sitting on either the Oversight Committee, the House Oversight Committee, or the Senate Homeland Committee, please contact them. If you don't know if they are on the committee, you can go to the House. Well, first of all, you can go to you can Google your representative or your senator, and they'll indicate what committees are on. Alternatively, you can simply Google the House Oversight Committee, and you'll get a page to go right directly to the website of the House Oversight Committee, and the members are listed there. Same thing with the Senate. You can go right to either the United States Senate, either you go to your senator, or senator's website, or go to your the United States Senate Homeland Security Committee, or Committee of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security. Probably doesn't matter how you say it. And they'll list the members as well. So if you have members, the members need to feel pressure to do this. Just getting a letter from me, you know, even Carolyn Maloney, who I am a constituent, has not responded to me. And she has a primary next month, and I keep emailing her each week. So, but she's more focused on too many helicopters overflying Manhattan right now. But it's really important for those of us in the research community who are concerned about this topic to contact your senators and your representatives if they're on that committee, one of those two committees, and ask them to have oversight hearings. Clearly, the statute is not working. I don't think Congress anticipated there would be many records left after ARB went out of business, and there is no mechanism. ARB had the ability to override the objections of the agencies, and NARA really doesn't. NARA is a custodian. They collect records. They do have the ability to declassify records of 50 years old, but if an agency objects, you know, they don't want to do it unilaterally, and I don't know if they have the ability. I mean, they have to make, under this JFK statute, they have to make a showing of the burden's on the agency, but there has to be a clear and convincing evidence that the identifiable harm outweighs the public interest. And I just don't know if NARA has that ability to make that determination or rebut it, or whether they even want to. So in the absence of ARB, there's, you know, recommendation 7 of the final report of ARB said that Congress should determine whether additional authorities are required for NARA, or whether there should be another agency created, or maybe a new ARB. So I'm concerned that they're going to try to, you know, delay this further, but that's for October. In the meantime, please contact your senators or congressmen if they're on the committees, and please feel free to, you know, join the PIDB meeting on Tuesday. And I don't know how long the Q&A is going to be. We really don't know much about how the procedure is going to work, but you can certainly put in a question. If you put in a question, don't blast Trump, because I think there were 3 of the members of the board were appointed by President Trump. So, you know, the weird thing is, libertarians and conservatives, if any of you have been watching the Jacob Hornberger's series on FFF, the Foundation of the Freedom of, I forgot the name of it. Anyway, there's an alignment, even though you think people that maybe are very liberal because they love JFK, there's a really interesting political alignment between people from different viewpoints because they don't like the security state. And so this is an opportunity to really have a bipartisan approach. And so please, if you do send a letter, don't criticize anybody, just ask straight questions like, for example, there's even things like the online collection has been down for quote unquote maintenance for quite a while. What's the problem, and when do you expect it to come back? The spreadsheet that has been used in lieu of the online collection only has what, David, 52% of the collection?
Yeah, so something like that. I mean, it's a low number, almost cut in half of what their collection is.
So ask them, you know, when are you going to update this? Why is it, you know, it's only 52%? When are you going to update this? Kind of those kinds of questions. Do you think you have the authority to override, or do you think you have the authority for 50-year-old records to declassify them on your own? Do you think you need more authority? Just very neutral questions that are designed to elicit information, because anything he says, we can use. The kinds of things like, you know, did the Office of Legal Counsel ask you to, make this recommendation, I wouldn't go there. I would just do very basic. You guys are a layperson, so ask layperson questions, very neutral. And please don't say any bad about President Trump because, we had 3 people. Also, don't go into theories of conspiracy theories. It was very hard to get on the agenda because I would say 3 or 4 of the members of the board were terrified of wading into the JFK black hole, as they called it. So we're just asking for release of records. It's all we're concerned about. That's why our letter to the PIDB had, Posner and Fred Litwin and other people that believe in the lone gunman. We wanted to show this was a bipartisan, if you want to call it bipartisan. At least everybody on any side of the argument wanted this. So please stay away from any conspiracy theories. Just it's all about the records. And with that, anyone has any questions? Otherwise, I'll keep quiet.
Well, I don't have a I don't have a question. I have a comment. I would like to definitely add in there and second that on Larry's behalf. Definitely, they keep watch on what's going on. I'm sure they do of who participates in what groups. I'm sure, we get a lot of people that I'm not putting on a tinfoil hat or anything, but, they do pay attention to who's asking questions, who they're affiliated with. And we definitely don't want that to come back and, bite us in the ass. We are trying to do good work here. And definitely there's a time and place definitely for getting the, our personal feelings, handled, around the water cooler talk. But yeah, when it comes to something like this, yeah, we need to be respectful and just ask the questions that we want to have answered.
And the thing is, you have to understand your audience. You have 3 people that are Trump people and some other people that are terrified. So just, be completely neutral. You're just asking information like, hey, I'm a member of the American public. I wanted to go on. The records aren't there, why should, it's 50 years. Why should we wait any longer? I just don't know, things very plain kinds of questions that show that, you don't have an agenda. You're just an American citizen who, democracy only works when it's transparent. When it's transparent.
Hey, Larry, this is Casey Quinlan. I just wanted to point out and maybe verify. I think back during the Bush administration and also into the Obama administration, I think there was somebody that was hired to, I think, go through the number of people who were either conspiracy theorists or people who were interested in assassinations, especially of President Kennedy. And they were like a watchdog group, if not a single person that was keeping track of all these people who were writing in or writing articles or whatever. Does that have anything to do with that committee that we're looking at right now in the archives?
No, well, the Public Interest Declassification Board was created after a law was passed in 2000. It's designed to make recommendations to the president on declassification and transparency. So that's a completely different body. That would have not been, it's typical Washington independent commissions where it's a bunch of political hacks that, want to get a per diem. So, but it has a different purpose. I have no doubt that many of us, I don't know if any of you guys have done it yet. If you submitted a FOIA to CIA to see what they have on you, I would suspect that some of us, they have some information on us. Especially if you wrote in the 70s or 80s.
Can I just ask a question for Larry regarding the documentation? Is the point that what Joe Bax pointed out last time we met, that less than half is actually published online?
Now, yes.
Isn't that probably the best? Wouldn't that be the best argument for pushing these people in whatever direction and getting more released instead of just talking about?
Yes, and that's why the purpose. So when you ask the question, you're asking it to the archivist, but you're really asking the purpose of that question is to make the board aware of that problem, right? So you're asking if let's say the archivist does in fact make a presentation. When you ask him that question, then you ask him, well, just that question alone, and he has to answer that. The idea is that what we want out of the PIDB is a recommendation, first of all, for all the records to be released. Number two, we probably want to give NARA extra resources to do this work. And three, maybe they need to have another ARB, but raising that question should put a question in the mind of the board that something's not working, right? Because the idea is that they replaced, why is this collection down? I don't know how long it's been down. That would be good to know. But then what they've replaced it with, it's got 52% of the files. And how is that is not honoring the intent of the law. And something is wrong.
That's a very good point, Larry. All right, Brian, you let me call on you, Brian. Never mind, I just looked in comments. Okay, we're good. Larry mentioned later this year with some information that he just shared. I've got a little post note I forgot to look at a while ago. It's here on my screen. I'm letting everybody know we're basically right at 6 months before November. So I want to let people know that we are going to have a November conference, but it's going to be a different November conference than what we've had in the past. And it's due to quality over quantity of speakers. It's going to be probably just a 2-day Saturday, Sunday conference. It will be before some other conferences go on, which is the normal ones in Dallas. I don't have the exact deal, so I don't want to talk about those just yet, but we will be at least announcing when the other conferences are going on. But we're going to have ours the week before, like we did last November. And we're going to, like I say, I want to go for quality of speakers over quantity. We don't need to have, 25, 30 speakers. We can go with a smaller group of speakers. I know that myself and Brian and Casey, we're all working on new PowerPoint presentations to present this November. I've gotten an insight on what Casey's looks like, and it's pretty powerful stuff. I'm working on a new one as well. And we had I know a lot of people didn't stick around for the end of our conference we had 2 weeks ago, but I know Larry knows what I'm talking about, and so does Bart, and so does Brooks. We had something that really was a lot of great information being shared, and it was shared in a way that it kind of just snowballed effect. And I like the way that it turned out, because instead of having an ending on a presentation and a speaker, we ended the conference on a kind of a free for all. But the information
a bunch of guys around a table having beers and just brainstorming.
Exactly, and I think that was very, for the ones that were in attendance. I know some people haven't got a chance to see it, or the ones that did not attend our conference didn't get a chance to see it. But the videos are being produced right now. The November ones are almost finished, and they'll be going up online for people to get copies of. Also, the ones we did 2 weeks ago, I'm just about done with Fridays, and then I'll start on Saturdays and Sundays. But of course, I'm doing it in between scanning documents, so it is taking some time. But the way that format happened, kind of on a fluke, what I've been talking to Casey about, and I've been filling in Brian as well, what we're going to do is we're going to go from either, say, 8 or 9 in the morning until probably 5 or 6 in the afternoon. But the last hour of each day, we're basically just going to turn it into a group discussion. Anybody that's in attendance, speakers, attendees as well, we're all going to do the same thing that we did 2 weeks ago. Now, why we're doing that is because that's a nice way to end each day's presentations and the conference. So that way you get a chance to, maybe we don't have time during Q&A and the speakers' presentations, but the other thing about it is instead of going with just strictly 60 minutes per speaker, because sometimes we can't get it done in 60 minutes, no matter how we couldn't get it done in 45 at some in-person conferences. So I'm opening up to somewhere between 75 to maybe 90 minutes. I think it's probably going to be 75 minutes per speaker, which will allow you to give your presentation, have time for questions and answers. And then, like I say, at the end of the day, instead of ending on a speaker, we're going to end on a group discussion. It's basically like, I know a lot of us have been to in-person conferences. And one of the best parts of going to the in-person conference was at the end of the day, we'd all get together at a bar, a hotel room, someplace, sit down, have some libations, and, just talk about just everything, the case, the speakers, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we feel is right. Some things we maybe, might want to ask that person again, and talk to them going, hey, maybe I didn't understand this, but can you give some more information on it? I think that's a better way than just bam, 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 right through the speakers, and we just keep moving on like a damn freight train. So we'll slow down the last part of the conference each day, and we'll pretty well go as long as everybody wants to stay there and talk. I mean, we were supposed to end the conference at 3:00 on Sunday, and hell, we went till 5:30. But we had a great discussion. I think we got a lot of things hashed out, and the nice part about it is it gets people to think. So I think that's what we're going to do. And like I say, it's probably going to be the second week of November, that Saturday, Sunday. It'll definitely be before the weekend of the 20th and 21st, 22nd weekend. That works out better for our group, and it doesn't interfere. So that way people that want to attend the other groups, they won't have to pick and choose where do they want to go to next. So would you like to add anything to that, Casey?
Yeah, I was going to say we're gonna be online like we have been the last year and a half, or last 2 years, and I do know that there are certain groups that are going to be in person in Dallas, which is fine. Eventually we might do that, but right now we are being very successful and have been pretty successful in putting these things together with the help of you guys out there. And the other idea of speakers coming in, we could use some information from any of you guys if you want to, give us an idea of a presenter, or if you want to present, let us know what that is. I know in talking to Larry Hancock at Lancer, they went through a process of trying to figure out. I hate to use the word vet, but they were going over individuals to try to figure out what they were going to present. And our deal is that we didn't know exactly how to put this thing together when we did put it together. And now we're at the point where we can synthesize this a little bit and bring out quality rather than quantity. And I know since I've been doing this for such a long time, I have backup programs just in case we need to get in there, but nobody wants to hear me all the time, or Brian, or even David. But at the same time, if any of you guys,
David and Brian's okay. You're another question.
Who is that? Is that Snap again? Your birthday present's in the mail. You know that, don't you?
I hope she looks good. Uh-oh, is this recorded?
Yeah.
Can you delete that?
But anyway, if any of you guys have any recommendations for speakers, new presentations, and I realize, we're 58 years into this, and I mean, I've had people around me saying, well, what are you trying to prove? Well, I mean, I would say we are young historians trying to figure out what the hell's going on in the United States, let alone what's going on today. But we can parallel what's going on today with what happened back then. And but if you guys have any recommendations, any speakers, any new ideas, we would sure appreciate it. But again, some of the old ideas, they haven't been answered yet either. So, but we appreciate all that you guys are doing and helping us out and getting this aired out to all the people.
Also, I want to kind of piggyback off that. Speaking of old versus young, I know back at the November conference that we did last year, we had, a handful of young researchers, high school and college kids.
Yeah.
We had a couple junior high kids actually as well. But this thing that we just completed 2 weeks ago with the JFK Historical Group being in association with us and David Denton, he was able to bring about 15 students with him to Olathe, and that's where we filmed from and presented our conference. And it was a nice thing of being able to not only get the kids involved, the younger generation. I don't want to call them kids; they're young adults. Get young adults involved with this, so that way we can pass the torch on to them. And I know we had some that couldn't attend in person, but they did attend on Zoom with us. So that's what we want to reach. If any of you guys that are out there, if you've been former teachers, or if you have access to teachers, some of the stuff that we talk about and present at our conferences, obviously it's not for the mainstream public school districts. They get a chance to log into something that we do on our conferences, on our monthly Zoom meetings, and they get a chance to see something maybe a little bit more fun than their normal day-to-day show up, listen to the teacher and then leave. There's a lot of things we talk about that the teachers just can't do because of curriculums. So getting a chance to reach them, reach out to local colleges, institutions, high schools, if you have access to them, and see if they want to join us. Give them the web address to projectjfk.com and tell them to check on the events tab. So
Is there an organization, David or Casey, of high school history teachers, or is it just state by state?
It's pretty well state by state as far as I know. I know I've been reaching out to local, different department heads at the local high schools, like here in where we're at in Shawnee, Kansas right now, and talking to them. And I'm basically from Olathe, so I've reached out to the Olathe public schools and just trying to get them to at least, nothing else. What I'm doing off the conference that we just did is I'm making kind of a promo reel that they can show maybe 30 minutes to an hour that the history and social studies teachers can show their class, and maybe while they're in class, then they can choose to share what we're doing instead of having to hell, it gives the teachers a break for an hour, and it maybe gives the students a new way to see something about history and make it actually come alive. So.
And I guess the second question is, do they have, I know teachers usually have these annual junkets. Obviously, in the ever COVID, they're probably virtual, but do like history teachers and social study teachers have like an annual thing that they go to just for their discipline that perhaps we could try to get on their agenda?
Well, I think Casey would be better to answer that question than myself.
Yeah, every year, and it may be 2 or 3 times a year, each discipline will have some sort of a junket or meeting, and it might be statewide, it may be regional wide, and they would bring up new different teaching strategies. And I know that I've been on some of those committees where we brought into those different types of teaching methodologies, and I would bring some of the things in where people would ask questions like, well, how do you put in the John F. Kennedy assassination in? I said, well, I put it into government as well as history. I said I was teaching the bare minimum of the Constitution, and I used the Constitution. I said, okay, when we started going over all the different amendments and the articles, I said, how does this apply to the John F. Kennedy assassination? And so we drew some parallels to that, and I showed them how you could do that. And it doesn't have to be the John F. Kennedy assassination. It could be any type of thing. But we used the Kennedy assassination as a basis for when I first started teaching in this. And then we went to Vietnam, and then to the civil rights, and then applied not only the history of the United States, but then we went outside. We had to go to the history of the world a little bit, but then also We had to bring in all different types of federal regulations as well. Then we started getting into the state constitution. So there's a lot of things you can do to bring this together. For instance, one of the questions I would ask is that who had jurisdiction of the murder of JFK in Dallas? And of course, that was kind of an open question. And everybody says, "Oh, the FBI does." And I said, "Not in '63, guys." I said, they'll confiscate all the material. But I said, who has jurisdiction? So now it gets us into, city government, state governments. And so that there are ways to teach this. And I had to go through my own school board to justify that I was not trying to tell everybody that there was a conspiracy involved, but the idea of questioning, what is going on in our society, and do we have all the answers? And so, in fact, I went to Kansas State Historical Society and asked them if I could present, and I did that for about 2 or 3 years in a row, just how to implement something like this into the curriculum, because I think there's a page and a half on the Kennedy assassination. And most of the time when I would be doing book reviews, I'd throw the books out because I said, you are explicitly stating that Lee Harvey Oswald did this. I said, you got to change the wordage in here. I said, I'm not going to take your book and supplement it in there. But at the same time, we all, and basically, I think what you're saying is to teach our teachers, teach our teachers how to teach this. And Lancer was doing that quite a bit. They were bringing in a lot of teachers with a lot of students, but they were sharing how to implement this into the curriculum. And it's a tough thing to do, especially I think David, the last time he spoke at a high school, he couldn't use the word gun, or he couldn't use the Second Amendment to the Constitution. And I'm sitting there going, are you kidding me? I said, this is part of the government of the United States. So sometimes the hands are tied of the teachers and what they can teach and what they can't. But the other thing is a lot of them won't cross the line and say, well, I'm not going to teach that. We'll just bypass the Second Amendment. We're not talking about guns. So I said, well, how do you get around the wars that we fought? There's a lot to talk about, but trying to figure out where to go and how to get there. It would be through teachers' institutions as well as governing bodies of individual social studies, and even we incorporated math and science into that because we were looking at ballistics. And so we did units down at middle school level where we brought 4 or 5 disciplines in and said, well, this is how you can do this. So interesting, but we'd have to step out and see what we could do, not only in the individual states, but on a national.
I was thinking that we could get like a calendar, and maybe on the more populous states, at least initially, to try to get on the agenda to make sure that because a lot of the states now, they're not using the word alleged anymore for assassin.
Yes. Right.
So, just try to.
Go ahead.
Someone going to say something? I was just saying maybe we get a calendar. We can try to get a calendar of when these, or I assume that they kind of meet either in the late spring or in the fall or something. So it's not like they don't meet in the summer, I'm sure, or in the winter. So we get a calendar. Maybe we could try to pick and choose a couple that we try to get on their agenda and just suggesting. I'm just posting the link to register for the PIDB.
Okay, yeah, it just popped up, Larry. The other thing I wanted to say is when we had David Denton's group of kids, and there was the group from the high school that he brought with him too. I gave them a kind of a. I was just out at a. Okay, we admitted a comic book store, and we were talking about doing the presentation on JFK, RFK, and MLK, and they had a old 1972, I think it was, comic book sitting there that you could get for doing a free donation. So I picked up about 15, 16 copies of it and brought it back to the students because I figured it'd be something to give them, at least that way they could see what, in I'm not saying that, kids, even adults, we love comic books. They love comic books. It's reaching them on their level. And once they got a hold of them, everybody started thumbing through them. They could stand around or, have breakfast and be reading them. And something like that, that's what we have to look at. And Mark made a good comment here just now about how about prepackaged lesson plans. That's an idea too. I know that me and Casey have talked about, and Brian as well, about doing like a weekly, 1 day a week type of course on teaching on the JFK assassination, maybe 2 or 3 hours at a time, once a week for like 8 or 10 weeks. And we're kind of trying to figure out how to implement that, but we want to make sure before we do it that we actually have the students, because we want to do this towards and geared towards the students, not just to the researchers that we have that participates in our monthly meetings and also our conferences, but to reach them. And I want to throw this out to anybody that is listening to this or anybody that watches the replay of this on YouTube or our website. Kids today are so technology focused, and apps are a big thing for them, not just websites and what they're searching for online. But what I'd like to do is I'm kind of putting a call to arms of anybody that has the know-how. And I know my son's been helping me out with this. He's going to be 12 and he knows more about apps than I do. At least I know how to use them. He knows how to design them. But if anybody would like to take part in helping us make a Project JFK CSI Dallas app geared towards the information towards students, I'd sure like to be able to talk to you guys, anybody that might have access to that, or if they'd want to help with it, because I think it would give us another vehicle to reach the younger generation and to go into the new frontier with new eyes on the case. So with that, I think that'd be a good direction to go with reaching the younger generation.
One of the things that we did not only at the high school level, and we kept it at juniors and seniors, but also at the college level. And we used to do this, but we can't do it anymore because of the use of the word gun or guns. But it was interesting. We had a time, especially with Brian Edwards being a ex-police officer, we had access to the firing ranges, and what we would do is give individual students a course and then take them out on the firing range. And we would use several different rifles and let them use them themselves. And everything was protected. Everything was supervised on this. And to show them how to fire weapons, and the weapons that could have been used down there that day. And kind of like in David's presentation, show the difference between a weapon that sounds like a firecracker and another one that sounds like a 30-06. And we would take these kids and put them on a course. And you talk about an interesting things. I mean, we wouldn't let everybody and anybody out there, but it was one of those things that it gave them a hands-on type situation. And a lot of the guys who thought they were God's gift to Hunters Association, they found out that some of these young girls could not only outshoot them, but were more calmer and could pull the trigger. And I said, guys, if you're going to ask these young ladies out, you better watch what they're doing right now, because they're putting a target on you right now, son. But I mean, it was a really interesting thing, because you got a chance to see how things actually function. Now, the high schools and the colleges won't do that anymore. But this is the future coming up. But there are too many rules and regulations right now where we can't even get around any of that, let alone say something like this.
Rick made a comment just now about considering Rotary clubs. And as a matter of fact, Rick, we did a presentation about 2 or maybe 2.5 years ago at the Shawnee Rotary Club, which was a nice place to go to. And I shout out to them for having us come in. Casey gave a great presentation at their morning breakfast, and it reached people that really didn't know, even at their age of being business owners, about what took place, and getting a chance to see something that they don't normally see. Instead of watching it on like Discovery or the History Channel, it came right to them live in person. And I know pre-COVID, we were starting to kick off the JFK home invasion, where we would go out and talk to people in their homes. This is our new version, so to speak, of the JFK home invasion. We're coming into their homes, except we're doing it over Zoom. So, you know, that's another way to reach them. And if we could even get like a group of, you know, kids that wanted to have a weekend type of presentation. You know, it's kind of hard to do things on weekdays, but with summer coming up, you know, we'd be more than happy to put on a presentation with them, you know, as a group, just like, you know, virtual learning. It just, we're focused on the JFK assassination. So, you know, that's kind of where we're wanting to lead into, and where we've been at before. So, we'll just keep taking steps at it and trying to keep the younger generation and the crowd involved with it, because when we saw the looks on their students, I mean, we saw them, you guys didn't really see them in person, we did. And, you know, they'd come up to us after the presentation was done and, you know, comment on how, you know, how much they liked the presentations. And I know that they talked to me, they're like, you know, you went through 180 slides in less than an hour, but it was so keyed into the fact that we were able to pay attention to what you were saying, understood it, and there was, you know, pictures, videos, and speakers that I'm going to focus this to the speakers out there. You know, presentations are great, and a lot of people they're focused on. Some people learn better by, you know, by talking to them, by reading, and some people are more focused and they can learn better with pictures and videos and things of that nature. So when you're making your PowerPoints, keep in mind that you are going to be, you know, your video, your presentation at the time, your video later on, it's going to be viewed by not only researchers of the calibers that we are, but also the younger kids. The last thing they want to do is hear somebody, you know, just drill on for an hour. You know, give them something to look at. Think about that when you're making your presentations. You know, make them interactive, make them, you know, interesting to the people that are viewing it. And I'm not picking on anybody or anything like that, but you know, that's what we've kind of heard from the younger kids. You know, they're like, well, this presentation was great because there was all this in there, and then this presentation, I really didn't pay attention as much because it just I kind of got lost in it, or maybe they didn't have something to keep their attention focused on it. And some kids or some young people, they may have an attention span of a gnat. So we want to keep their attention in it. We want to make it, you know, to actually make the history of it come alive to them. So,
and you can't have too much information on each slide. It's got to be just head point, because if it's too dense, it isn't like a speech. You can't put a speech on a slide. So otherwise they're not going to read it. You know, full blocks of text, it doesn't work.
Larry, I know you're talking to me.
You know, I hadn't thought about it, but you do. Yeah, okay.
No, I'll tell you what. No, being old school and as a teacher at the high school level, I not only wanted the kids to pay attention to what I was trying to say, but also, God, I had kids that couldn't read. I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm going to show you what the words are and then define them for you. But yeah, but in a lot of cases right now, like for instance, the material that you are presenting, the material that let's say Larry Simpich is presenting. You know, you guys are excellent. What did I say?
You said Larry Simpich. You mean Bill Simpich?
I mean Bill Simpich. Bill Simpich.
We're at this point, we're kind of merged anyway. So.
Yeah, brothers, right? But at the same time, a lot of you guys out there are right on line with where we are. But as a teacher, I have to sit back and I have to go, okay, how can I break this down so that my students will understand it? But not only students. Holy cow. We've got people in the United States that have no idea what the hell is going on. I mean, I think.
Well, as a lawyer, you know, we have to be able to to convey complex topics to lay people. So it, you know, the skill set, anyone that, communication skills are really important. So whether you're a teacher or a lawyer or whatever, it's important to be able to, this could get really complicated, this stuff, you know, and you kind of have to kind of also take it at little sound bites. Otherwise people just get bewildered.
Well, I know when I go out and talk to kids, you know, and students at the high school and college levels, you know, I tell them, I said, you know, if you guys want to understand just what the hell's going on today in the world that you're growing up in your generation, you have to go back and look at something in previous generations, just like I did. I wasn't born until 74, but I know more about the day in 1963 than probably what I had for breakfast this morning. So I can't say that's healthy, but you have to look back to what took place on that fateful day in Dallas to understand the world may not seem what it is. That's, you know, you have to go back and look and see, you know, what took place, who the actors were involved in the cover up, in the planning, and then look and see if history doesn't repeat itself.
Bill Maher had something on last night on his show about, you know, they're talking about the young guests, the younger guests, younger adults they have on his program. It's like, they say, oh, that was before I was born. And say, well, I know about the French Revolution. That was before I was born.
Right.
You know.
Well, yeah, it comes up to people where they're like, well, you know, the guy's, I've heard this, I don't know, time and time again, the guy's dead. Who gives a shit? Well, people care. Okay. That's why, you know, our group and everybody that's in attendance, you know, why we're doing this is because it does matter. You know, we want to know what took place on that day, because then maybe there might be an answer of what took place during RFK's assassination, Martin Luther King, Oklahoma. I mean, you just keep going with it until you figure out, you know, yeah, things happen for a reason.
And the other thing
they
they
know
don't
what that reason was.
The other thing they don't understand is, remember, it's like 1963, we had 3 TV networks, we had radio. We did not know for hours what was going on. You know, it's like, you know, it's a whole different era now. You were just like, you're talking to your neighbors, you're huddled around a radio or a TV set. It was a time, things were so much slower, and it was just a different way that we learned information in those days. And I think it's as if we talk about the way the generals fought the Civil War, and they didn't, you know, how did they know where they didn't know where the armies were, right? Yeah. How many times were the battles were, or the outcome of the battles were because they didn't know where the enemy was. And nowadays that would never happen. But these are the kind of things that I think would be interesting to students to say, you know, what was it like to be, and you know, be working in 1963 at 12:30, and you hear a rumor, and now you're trying to find out what happened, and all the people, you know, all you're getting is these periodic radio broadcasts, and then finally TV. It's another whole part of the experience of living in that time that this generation doesn't understand. And that's part of the reason, I think, why it was so impactful to us, aside from the fact our president was killed, just the way we learned about it and the doubts. I mean, I think I told you guys, when I got home, we heard that the assassin was in New Jersey. And so us 10-year-olds went down to the creek with our Boy Scout knives, and we were going to capture him when he went through my town.
Well, you know, also too, even some of the adults, but basically most of the kids, I would say most of the students at the high school, junior high, and college level would ask questions as simple as this. They would say, well, how come you guys didn't start investigating and doing research on the Zapruder film and any of the other 12 to 26 films that were out at that time? And I said, well, first of all, let's go back. They were not out at the time. I said, you're going to have to go back and try to figure out that we didn't get access to a lot of these films until probably about 1960, 69, 1970, 1975. But I said, heck, we still have researchers right now that are still looking for films and where they are and who actually has them. And
the other thing, Casey, the other thing that's interesting is I'm actually writing an article now about how the JFK assassination changed the FOIA law.
Oh,
like, we have freedom of information, and like a lot of the key decisions about that shaped the FOIA law because of our attempts to try to get information about the JFK assassination. You know, and that's a historical story, you know, that they passed this FOIA law, and then Weissman started using it and other people started using it, and it created law and created new concepts about how do you get government information. Another historical story.
I hear just recently, I'm looking up this morning. I'm looking up Charles Murphy, okay, and I'm trying to get a hold of his op-ed that he wrote in 1960, 61, and 62 for Fortune magazine, and I am online, just simple online. I haven't gotten into any of the basic archives like yet, but I cannot get his article, and I'm sitting there going, oh, what the heck? So. But his article basically is Cuba, the record set straight. And I'm sitting there going, okay, how come I cannot get this online? Well, I get a deal here that says that the archives have been closed for X amount because of COVID. And I'm hearing that from you. So I'm sitting there going, holy cow, no wonder I can't get into this stuff. But that's just the simple part, let alone trying to get into the actual archives and anybody else's works that are sent out as gifts to colleges.
Well, I think another thing I'm going to refer back on Bart on this one because he made the comment. I think he's got a hell of an idea. You know, he's talking about doing a video series of, you know, like 15-minute clips. Sometimes, you know, I notice, like, you know, we have our conferences, and one of the ideas what I had to start these monthly meetings, these gatherings, is you know, the journey of being able to go and talk about things on a you know, couple hour basis. And Bart's talking about doing a video series on like 15-minute clips. It's kind of the idea. There was a video server that had like 10-minute clips that you could, you know, view while you were on the train or in the back of a taxi or something, to be able to watch an episode clip before you can watch the whole episode. It's things like that. I mean, some people just need to have it broke down into smaller sections.
I will tell you that is, I would say 15 minutes is on the really outer edge. For attorney advertising now, we are told no more than 1 minute.
Yeah.
But I would say 5 or 10 minutes, because the attention span of people, they just want to get the big picture. Look, we're dealing with a generation that learned online, right? And it's like fighter jet pilots. Why were they so good? These guys grew up with those games, right? You know, you have to deal with your audience, and I think you have to do it in at the most 10-minute sound bites.
It depends on the subject, basically, because it depends also how much information is available, and you see that with Mark Fenton, that anything goes between 7 and 15 odd minutes, but I don't really see him go over the 15 minutes. If he's got a bigger subject, he turns it into a podcast. So, but overall, for me, I already have in the back of my head, basically, the subjects that I'm going through, and all of them are all around 10 minutes, whereas the interrogations in the second floor lunchroom encounter are going to be in multi-parts. I don't know, 5 or 6 parts.
Because people just don't want to sit around. Plus, people are really busy, but they don't want to sit around for more than 10 minutes.
I know, because my first movie was 100 minutes long, so that was just taking the mickey. So,
But the good news is it gives you lots of content, though, right? You keep doing 10-minute segments.
I know, but now I'm going to get that clip got 128,000 views, especially in the first 2 years. It went ballistic. It went really well. And, but at the same time, I realized that not everyone was watching it. I mean, my girlfriend, who I asked to judge it, she took 2 turns in it because she said it's too much information. So, and that's what my former army buddies who I asked to critique the movie as well. And he said, like, it's really long and it's loads of names, and if you don't know it, then it's really complicated. It's like being in front of a class with 60 students and all of a sudden you're expected to know all the names by the end of class, basically. So yeah, that's why I decided to basically, and Fenton's approach is really good because he gets 1 million hits in about, I don't know, in a few weeks' time. He's really highly rated, and there's a lot of people that are interested in Second World War stuff. And I thought, if you do it like that in that formula, I bet you get a similar reach as the Second World War stuff with the JFK stuff as such. So, and also by using that formula, you can chop bits up and just, make a part 1 and do a part 2 in 3 weeks time and put something else in between or whatever. There's no real need for that because at some point it's all collected on YouTube anyway.
Are you talking about like doing a video, or are you talking about like doing a podcast?
It's a combination of both. If you look at my movie that I did, Prayer Man, that basically shows what I'm doing, and also part doing that disastrous presentation I did 2 weeks ago. The software as such, which is multi-touch, but basically allows you to put several types of multimedia into one screen. So that's how I explain things in the videos as such. Fenton is lucky. He just plays a lot of old World War II footage and just does a narration on top of it. I've got to interact with all the content and bring it up as such.
I'm thinking, David, that we should start doing podcasts.
Well, it's kind of what, yeah, I'm in total agreement. I mean, it's kind of what I don't want to call these a podcast, but I mean, they're kind of a video cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, but I think a real podcast, but people can listen when they're driving, right?
Right, absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. Most people spend a lot of time in their cars.
You
and
could
they can't watch it.
rip the audio from the video.
Another idea that I'm looking at doing is, and it doesn't take me that long to do, but what I think I'm going to do on our website on the events tab, just like I have the chat logs you can download. I think what I'm going to do is take our videos that we have that we post up on YouTube and link to our site. There's going to be a MP3 download on the website of each one of our monthly meetings that you'll be able to download the audio file to, and then you can put it on a flash drive in your car, your cell phone, whatever you want to do. And it gives people another opportunity. If they don't have time to sit down and watch, an hour and a half, 2 hour monthly meeting, then they'll be able to actually download it and listen on the go. So I think, I think that's a hell of an idea, and I'll start working on that pretty quickly.
And like I think William Law is on our thing, and he's got so much great video.
Yeah.
Over the years, I mean, he could break that stuff down into a podcast, or at least audio bites, for people to hear Denton and those guys that are dead now, but they spoke about what they saw, and you don't have to, you could be in a car and listen to this. You don't, they're just talking. There's no charts anyone's showing, right? Sorry to mention your name, William, but I just saw your name and I know you have so much interesting stuff.
Well, I tell you what, real quick, Bob Saltzman would like to make a comment. So
Yeah.
Bob, go ahead. Bob, you with us?
Hey, David, this is Brooks. I'll jump in for a second if I can while you're
Yeah,
trying
go
to
ahead.
locate Bob. I got to thinking about, as I was preparing to do my presentation, this is really kind of an insiders group primarily, related to the JFK case. If you have to stop and pause during your presentation to give background, so if you mention Ruth Paine, you have to explain, well, who is Ruth Paine? Okay.
Right.
Who's Mary Moorman? And who's Johnny Roselle? Every time you throw a name out there, people who are fairly new to this, it's almost like you need, like the way they rate motion pictures where you can rate a presentation, this is beginner's material. So it's good for the insiders like us. You just rattle off names and we all know the context and who they are and where they fit into the history of this. That would be just too mundane, too slow, but it's almost like if you're preaching to the choir, if you're talking to insiders, we can go at a much faster pace, cover a lot of ground, just zipping out with names and whatnot, because we're insider trading. We all know who's who, and we know the story. So therein lies the challenge. Who's your audience? What are you trying to achieve? Because if you're starting at ground zero with a whole A lot of young people, people not familiar with anything about the assassination. Man, you got to slow it down, get the basics and whatnot. So it really depends who we're talking to, but it's almost like we need an insiders meeting or a forum. I think this is it. These monthly meetings, for sure, we could just let the fur fly and go to a much faster pace because we don't have to worry about, trying to explain who Ruth Payne is or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it looks like Bob's having a little bit of mic problems, so we're gonna see if we can work that out. But I'm gonna share screen here real quick. Larry talked about Jacob Hornberger's site, so I just want to show this real fast. It's the www.fff.org, and there's a tab. I'll go back here, but there's a tab that you can, when you get to the Explore Freedom and click on Multimedia, and then if you go to Multimedia and just say you click on the one that says National Security State and the Kennedy Assassination, there's presentations that's been going on. I know that Douglas Horn's been doing some, Gary Aguilar, Mike Chesser, David Mantic, and these are excellent videos that they're doing. So if you click on it and then it's like this talk here is from David Mantic, part of the online conference. You can go in and watch the videos that's on there. So I suggest anybody that has not had the opportunity or didn't know about this, please go there and follow the videos that they have put up in presentation form. So that way you guys know what's going on with fff.org. I know that there's a lot of good information there, and there's Doug's right there from April 9th. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, definitely go in there. And I know Dr. Newman, he did one, and I think he's done a couple of them if I'm not mistaken. But definitely go in there and check it out on fff.org and see what his group is doing, and what the speakers are talking about. I think they're great presentations. Let me go back to my chat.
No, that's normal.
Real quick.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, let me ask. Anybody else has something they'd like to talk about?
I have a question for Doug Horn. I know Doug is on, right?
Yeah, Doug's in the audience.
Okay, so I've been reviewing electronic files in connection with this FOIA request and the work we're doing trying to get the records released. And I know that the ARB had lots of communications back and forth with the agencies when agencies were objecting to releasing the information, and ARB had to evaluate the harms versus the public interest. I've seen correspondence relating to these discussions, but I actually haven't seen any written documentation from the agencies or the ARB's actual deliberation documents. And I'm wondering, were they not reduced to writing, or are they subject to some sort of I guess exemption of the FOIA or some privilege doc? I'm just curious if Doug knew, because I've been going through each of the lawyers' electronic files on Mary Farrell, and then they have, you can go by the individual, and I haven't found anything yet that any kind of actual document where the agency says, well, this document, here's the harm posed by this, and this is why we think it outweighs the public interest. I don't know if you guys went into that kind of detail or not. I was wondering if Doug had any recollection about that process.
Hi, Larry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. First of all, you're doing great work, and we're all proud of you, man.
Thank you.
So I'm probably going to disappoint you today. I know that Ron Herron, hired during our last year, was an attorney in charge of our compliance process. So there's a lot of written correspondence between him and different agencies about what they were doing or not doing. You're probably aware of that.
Yeah.
Well, it's dangerous to say this many years later. I wonder if there were tape recordings made in our conference room of the board member deliberations. I just think that's worth looking into. I know they didn't have a court reporter present to record their deliberations, but I wonder if there were tape recordings. And of course, if there were, I wonder if they'd be classified. I just don't know the answer to that. It's worth looking into.
Do you recall whether the agencies put anything in writing for, did they do a record by record weighing, or did they just have a conference call saying, these are records, we want to keep them, postponed, and it was all verbal? Do you know whether it was anything reduced to writing? Because I've seen like MOUs, but I haven't seen the actual weighing documents.
It should all be in writing. Here's what happened. The staff had to meet once a month with the board members. They were usually only in town 2 or 3 days a month.
Right.
Until the end, and then it was more often than that. But the staff would make recommendations on which records should be open in full, which ones should be partially redacted, and which ones where we should oppose the agency attempts to keep something redacted. And then the board members would have to take the staff recommendations and make a decision, and then they would correspond in writing with each agency, telling them, okay, we agree with your proposal that this isn't relevant. We don't agree with this proposal that it's not relevant. We don't agree with you, then this should be redacted. We think it should be open in full or in part. And there should be a detailed paper trail of all that. It just would require someone to take a lot of time and to follow all the threads, but I think they would be linked in time to each monthly board meeting, and that's all I can say about it today. I'm sorry, I can't be more specific.
Let me take one step back. So when you were, as a staff person, make the recommendation, did you as a staff member have paper exchanges with the agency, or were this all phone calls?
I'm trying to remember, Larry.
That's okay.
I know that the result of the briefing we gave to the board members,
yeah,
would produce paper back to the agencies. Sometimes, a lot of times, the discussions between the military team or the CIA team or the FBI team and the agencies would be in person.
Okay.
And then we would go to the board, and then there would be paper coming out of our discussion with the board with a board decision.
So you probably were in a meeting and you would be going over documents saying yes, no, whatever. And so there'd be no paper. The decision would be based on your physical view of the document. You wouldn't be having an exchange of memos.
That's right.
Okay. Because I've been going through, I mean, you're right. It's a long time. I've been going through each person, and each person usually has about 400 files to their name. You got a particularly long one as well. The only one that was short was like Montague. I don't know why, but, and it takes, I do like 100 a night because it, but I think you just explained my problem is because I've been trying to find the underlying, how did they weigh? They probably just gave it to you orally in a meeting, and then you guys had to decide whether you accepted it or not.
Yeah, and after we gave it to the board orally each month, I mean, we'd have document numbers. We'd be talking about document dates, what this record is, why is it important? Here's the date of the document, who it comes, who originated it. And then we would give the board our recommendation. They would have to make decisions. Yeah. And then those were recorded in writing somewhere. Maybe there were minutes of each board meeting kept by the head of research and analysis or by the executive director. You would think there would be. And then the board members, whenever they disagreed with an agency, they had to go back in writing and say so. So it just requires a lot of gumshoe work.
And then they had to go to the president. If they couldn't reach agreement, they had to go to the president. And I was looking for the documentation that went to the president. I'm sure that's all classified.
No, that should be open. Those,
okay.
The board opposing an agency decision and going to the president would have to be in writing and unclassified. It would have to mention a record by date or by originator. Even if it didn't mention the content of the record, it would have to identify the record. And of course, in every single instance, Clinton avoided making a decision.
Yes.
He would have us meet with his general counsel the general counsel would either say, why don't you people get together on this and make a compromise, or he would tell us to come back to him a month later or 2 months later, and then either the agency would cave or there would be a compromise reached. But I don't recall any decision where he had to overrule an agency, the executive branch. He didn't want to have to do that.
Right. I saw the correspondence where it kind of indicated that. But I got to tell you, I mean, even though after reading your book, going through those files, I just want to say you guys did an unbelievable job. The way you pursued these agencies, and I mean, I just wish you guys weren't didn't have the clock run out of you, because your report was fabulous. We're still using your report now. I mean, when I wrote the FOIA letter, recommendation 7, that's what we want Congress to look at. Your work product was, I just was so proud reading what you guys did. I mean, it was an amazing piece of work. You should be really proud of yourself.
Thanks, Larry. Here's one of the things that frustrates me the most, and John Newman too, is the fact that Ron Herron, our compliance official, he didn't learn until the very end of our lifespan that the Joint Chiefs of Staff had destroyed in the 1970s, in the late 70s, I think, something like 30 years of internal minutes of their meetings with each other. That's a crime against history. And we ran out of time. They ran out the clock on us. And I think he wrote back to them and asked for the explanation, and they never provided an explanation. The Joint Staff Secretariat, who was the most cooperative of all the folks I had to deal with, never provided an explanation for how that happened or who made the decision. And that's a crime. So, we ran out of time.
And what the Secret Service did to you guys, that was unbelievable. They destroyed the records after you asked for them.
Yes, and lied about it for 6 months. So when I came on board in '95, that was a big brouhaha that I stepped in the middle of. And I became aware of this controversy, whether or not the board should hold public hearings and publicly castigate the Secret Service for destroying records of presidential protection for 1963, and including the Chicago trip, for which they had 3 folders which they destroyed. Unfortunately, there were meetings held, and the board members, I'm assuming it's the board members themselves, not Jeremy Gunn and David Marwell on the staff.
Right.
The board members decided not to do a public hearing and not to confront them and scold them in public, which I think was a big mistake in hindsight. That's 2020 hindsight by a little old staff member, me, but I think that was a mistake. We should have made an example of them and shown what the penalty would be for anyone else who destroyed records, but we didn't, unfortunately. So that was the politics of that one.
What do you know about the Fritz notes that were donated anonymously to the ARB in late '96? What do you know about it?
Bart, I'm not clued in on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I have a vague memory that it happened, and I don't remember any details because I wasn't part of that chain.
Fair enough. Thanks.
Well, I got a comment here real quick that is from Alan. It says, was there any new info in Buell's book? Could we use these meetings to discuss specific aspects of the assassination, like Bart's lunchroom theory? Has there been any fundamental knowledge recently on the type Barry discovered in The Girl on the Stairs? And for those that don't know, Buell Wesley Fraser's book did come out January 25th of this year. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but you can get on Amazon for $32.95. Steering the Truth, My Internal Connection, JFK, and Lee Harvey Oswald. Has anybody read that book? Is there any new things in there that we haven't heard before?
Yeah, about the guy with the rifle that he saw, which is absolutely impossible. That's such a load of dreck. It's unbelievable. He claims basically that when he walked over to the parking area, that he saw a guy with a rifle. So let's just see. He's seen in Darnell about 20-odd seconds after, and after the shooting, after the final shot, and then basically makes his way. So that has to be done after he's seen in a Darnell film, and then all of a sudden sees a guy with a rifle. After how many people actually are going already to the grassy knoll before him, as such? It's just complete rubbish.
Well, he never mentioned that. You look at his affidavit to the sheriff's department or the PD, never mentions that. What
he just did that to crank book sales up, more or less.
Yeah.
What's more important to know is also that the original ghostwriters involved with Fraser's book did a runner, walked away from it because it was a bit of a nightmare to deal with the book because there were assertions made that he'd never be able to back up as such. So they walked away from it. That's all I know so far. I don't have time to read books.
that
I'm
sounds
doing
like-
documents. So.
Yeah, that sounds like the book to put next to Snow White and the Warren Commission report.
Yeah, but it's true though. It's just rubbish. I mean, the thing is, Fraser has been an incredible inconsistent witness, like a lot of these people, and I don't know if it's done willingly or not. I mean, that's a whole different debate. But as a witness, as such, you know, there's certain things he's very inconsistent on, like Oswald's departure, for instance.
Well, I asked him at the last Lancer conference. I got him by himself for 5 seconds, and I asked him, "Hey, I gotta ask you from a law enforcement perspective. You know, I'm sure you were interviewed by law enforcement and the sheriff's department, the FBI, blah blah blah." I said, "Do you remember what clothes Lee was wearing when you picked him up?" And he looked at me like I asked him to solve a trigonometry question, and he says he was wearing clothes. That was his quote. He was wearing clothes. And then he walked away. So there you go. It was at that moment, I think I just closed him out of my, let's get to the bottom of this guy. But nah, personal review, I've never seen the book. I didn't even know about a book. I'm not going to buy the book. I don't have time to read it. I'm like you, Bart. I don't have time to read it anyway.
Yeah, I don't have time to read books at all because the documentation is my life now. Yeah, it's what am I going to make out of it? And he doesn't discuss certain issues either. So, it's too late. That book should have come out 30 years ago instead of now. It's just, it won't make a dent at all. So, and there's no massive revelations. I mean, the guy of the rival can easily be discounted from a timing perspective, because it would mean that he would have to leave before Shelley and Lovelady were already like 30, 40 feet ahead of him anyway, minimum, if not more longer. So I don't believe a word. So that's that.
All right, well, sounds good. Who else would like to add something here? I'm looking here I'm reading comments at the same time trying to run this.
I just got one question. Was your event 2 weeks ago, like, is this the second time you did it on Zoom, or how many times have you done the main seminar thing on Zoom before?
On Zoom, where we've done the global conference, we did one in November of last year, and then we just did the spring one 2 weeks ago. So that was our second one. The third one's going to be this November.
Right. So between the first and the second, was there a lot of more traffic or participation and so forth? I mean, technical bits basically.
I think kind of a breakdown on it. I think we had more. Well, we actually had more people show up for the November conference than we did for the spring conference. Now, it could have been because we were not just strictly focusing on the assassination of JFK, but we had. Let me rephrase that. We had more people show up online in November because that's all we offered. As far as our spring conference went, we had less people online, but we had the students involved that came in person. So if you want to mash it all out, we had probably maybe one or two more for the spring conference because we offered the in-person part for the students and David Denton's group. But I think the fact is, we had great information shared at both conferences. I know that we had a little bit more time to announce last year's conference than what we did this year. We kind of went with only about a 2.5-3 month campaign to let people know about the conference. So having it in the spring was a great thing to have. It's just most people are usually more familiar with doing a November conference. So, people are always looking out for that. We did about a 6 or 7 month campaign last year. So I know, like I say, this year for the November conference, that's why I'm letting people know today's meeting. And then the campaign will kick off this coming up week. So that way we'll already have information being put out there. I'm changing the format a little bit with doing the get together discussions at the end of each day. Try to make it fresh. And then also the fact that, you know, I don't want to go, like I say, I talked about earlier, I don't want to go with, you know, having a lot of speakers. I want to have enough speakers, but I want to have great information, some new information, talk about some of the old information that we have updates on, and go with it from that point. But I think both of them were very successful. I just think that more people were used to doing the conference in November. So, I mean, there's been spring conferences, obviously. It's just our group hadn't done one in the spring. So I'm not saying we won't do it again, but I like the idea that we're kind of going down the road right now with what we're doing. The start of January, we started doing these Zoom journey meetings, and now I want to start doing 2 a month. So that way we have like what we're doing today, and then each month we focus on one presenter. I'm not saying that we won't do a spring conference again, but the nice part about it is we're getting monthly. We're breaking it down monthly to have one speaker per month on top of our regular, you know, journey meeting. And then we have our big conference in November where we all come together. So I'm kind of going with that aspect of maybe we will look at doing a spring conference next year, but whether we have one or not, it's too early to tell at this point. But I definitely like the idea that we were able to talk about Robert F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
You know, I feel that was better to do during the spring. And then we focus our efforts and our time on JFK in November because of the anniversary of the death. So of the assassination. So I think that's kind of where we're going with that, Bart.
Carnival. Yeah, good. It's very similar to what we do, but yeah, it's good. It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked earlier today, and we're thinking of we want to do see if we can do a physical conference in September, although it's very short timing from a timing perspective, but we're thinking of doing something. And on top of that, we're probably going back to the pub soon as well, because pubs are opening full on next week.
Absolutely.
So we are then going back to our regular haunt in southeast London, and it's called the Cheshire Cheese. And what we do now is basically run the Zoom alongside with the physical meeting. So we just have the camera on 10 guys, probably 10 to 15 guys in a room with burgers and beers, and the rest just as such. And then also, of course, presentations will be done through the laptop that's connected, and so you can see it and on the screen and on Zoom itself. So that for us is the future. I don't think, not in the next foreseeable future, I do not see Zoom disappearing from any meeting. It just has to be included as such, you know. And there's the odd glitch here and there. I mean, but now to run stuff like this video, you know.
No, it's changed the world. I mean, I think every conference is going to have a combination of people, you know, that want to pay to go to a hotel and conference, and others just want to watch it from the convenience of their home.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, I was involved, and most people know I was involved with JFK Lancer for about 10 years doing their conference in person. And at the time when, you know, Zoom really wasn't around at that point. We had Skype, and usually when you were trying to Skype somebody in, you know, you ran into a shit ton of problems.
I know.
The video quality was shit too. So
I know. Yes,
you know. Now where we're at with having Zoom Zoom is basically the platform. I know there's other ones around there, but the way that Zoom has done their algorithms, it's just usually the best one to use. And I say that even though we had a few problems a couple weeks ago, but it wasn't Zoom's fault. It was Eventbrite not being able to connect on the links that were, you know, bought with ticket sales. And that I've already had a lengthy discussion with Eventbrite about making sure that doesn't happen because nobody seems to have a problem getting into the monthly meetings. It was when we had a conference and it went, you know, 3 days. The first day, everybody had a pretty easy way of getting in, but by Saturday morning, my phone was blowing up, my emails were blowing up. I'm trying to run the conference and try to let people in too. So I definitely want to make sure that, you know, anybody that experienced that, I deeply apologize. It's one of those, you know, oh shit moments that it was out of my control. I was dealing with Eventbrite at that point. And when you have third parties that you deal with on that, then you run into issues. But they've told me already that, you know, they've got the bug fix that they had the problem with, so we shouldn't experience that in November or the months going ahead. But instead of having 3 days listed, in November, instead of having 2 days listed, it's going to be 1 day listed, and it's basically the conference will look like it's going on for, 48 hours. So that way the links don't go dead. But I'm looking here at the comments. I'm sure you guys can see them as well too. This is one that just came up from Lisa. This is a direct message to me. It says, regarding the MLK assassination, where do you rate the final book written by Dr. Pepper? Anyone can weigh in. Somebody's going to have to weigh in because I haven't read the book. Would anybody like to tackle that question from Lisa?
Sure, I can. This is Dan Storper. Get my microphone on.
We can hear you, Dan. Go ahead.
I mean, actually, my photos. Sorry, I can't figure out how to make myself. Let's see, show self view. Okay. First of all, I wanted to say you were talking earlier. Going back to this idea that we established this Truth and Reconciliation Committee. One of the goals was that we wanted to try and find a way to present the 4 assassinations, the major ones, in a clear, compelling, and simple way. So we've been working on these primers for a while, and Bill Pepper and an associate of his worked on the basic rough draft of the MLK primer. Now there are a lot of things that certain researchers may quibble about, and so we've been trying to look at kind of the items that are most uniform or universally agreed upon for all the assassinations in creating this. But my experience, and having met him a couple of times and read his work, is that by and large he is the leading authority and has probably the most factual stuff. He has certain, keep in mind, he was James Earl Ray's attorney, so his interest through much of this was to get James Earl Ray free. So anything that would indicate some involvement, knowing or unknowing, by James Earl Ray would not really be brought to the fore very much. And I think that's true with all the patsies. My perspective on it is that there was some degree they were manipulated, but there was some knowing awareness of it. And in any event, I think the hope is that primer will represent kind of a broad, streamlined view of the King assassination. And I think Pepper did a good job, and the book is a very good book by and large.
Well, thank you, Dan. I wanted to let everybody know I just got a phone call from Alan Dale, who works with Dr. John Newman, and I made the announcement that we're going to be doing the next Zoom meeting on May 29th between 1 and 4, and I was just informed that there's going to be about a 2-week delay, maybe 3-week, middle of June before he gets his presentation. I don't want to rush him. I want to make sure that he's got time to get everything done the way he wants to present it. That's the way I am with all my researchers that come on, that will come on the show. So as of right now, the date is still open. I don't have anybody in that slot for this month. I have a couple other people in mind that we may be able to put something on the 29th. And if we don't have that, then we'll start the two times a month starting in June. But I will reach out to a couple people, and if you see it up on the website, that there's going to be another meeting on May 29th focusing on one researcher, or if anybody that's out there right now that would like to present on May 29th, I would be more than happy to hear what you've got, what you want to do. And we can focus that meeting on you instead of we'll just switch places, and we'll put Dr. Newman on in middle of June. So I'm glad at least everybody that's still in attendance knows that, we're going to be changing that to a different time.
Can I just say one thing? You can always, even though if you don't have a speaker, you can turn it into a chat session,
Yeah, I mean, we could do this again in 2 weeks. I have absolutely no problem with that. I definitely like the idea of being able to do the format of live free for all, get together and everybody talk. And I also love the idea of having where we focus on just one person. So if we don't have anybody to fill in a couple weeks, what the hell? We'll just do this again.
I agree.
Because the nice part about it is we always have things that we uncover, discover, and talk about. So we will continue doing that.
Several weeks ago, I was talking to a couple of people who had gone to the Lancer conventions, and they were young people. And I can remember sitting in one of the presentations when Dr. Newman was presenting. And I would say over the past 20, 30 years, I sat in on a lot of his presentations. The remark that I wanted to make is based upon the idea that if you didn't read his books or understand where he was coming from, you would probably come into that presentation not knowing, what he was talking about. And I got very interested in these two young people that were sitting at the conference. So I scooted over toward them. Now we're in person now. And so I asked them, I said, do you understand anything that Dr. Newman is saying? And one of the girls looked at me and she says, well, maybe 5%. And so I kind of looked at her and I said, okay. She goes, well, what about you? And I said, well, I'm a researcher, but I said, I'm going to say 80%. I said, there's some things in here that I'd probably have to have his book and some explanation and take notes. But I said, and I talked to these people a little later on after we've had our Zoom conferences, and their remarks were is that, my God, I can understand Dr. Newman now. And I think what, in some cases, John Newman has always been a fantastic speaker. But at the same time, I think Zoom has organized him to a point where even the younger people understand him a lot better, or maybe they're reading his books. I don't know. But at the same time, we've been getting a lot of really positive feedback about John Newman in his presentations. But not only that, but we always knew that John Newman was a fantastic presenter. But boy, to tackle the material that he's tackled and the material that some of you guys have tackled out there, it's tough for a beginning person to understand where to start with you guys, and then how to drive through that and try to figure out exactly where everybody's going on this. And it's tough. There's no doubt. But at the same time, Mr. LaPlante said, the idea that most of us have heard all these names before, and we could go on from here. But I'm still amazed that some of the material that is now being found in the archives and released in the doc releases, that right now I'm looking at why people hated JFK, and I think I found it. I think I found it, and part of it is in the documents that have been released, but part of it is also in Larry Hancock's book. And so I'm jumping on Larry Hancock. I think his book was fantastic. I'm in my fourth reading, primarily because I don't quite understand all of the different organizations that have infiltrated in through the CIA and the military. And that's a hard thing to do, even for, I would guess, a seasoned researcher. So I have to take notes and sit back and say, what is he talking about? So, but I wanted to point out that even some of the younger people are understanding a lot people a lot better than what they have before. And I have to lay praise on Dr. Newman, because he's really come through for us on this.
All right. Well, let me see what I've got here in the in the comments.
I was actually, can I ask a question? Is my mic still on?
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Has anyone ever written a simple book on the Kennedy assassination that makes sense for younger people who really are, that you could say, hey, read this?
Well,
That was what Jerry Ford tried.
well, I know there's been several books, geared towards kind of an overall effect. I mean, you've had, the Kennedys for Dummies. You've had, JFK book that had, like caricature drawings, and some of those have actually gotten, some of those books have actually gotten some of our, some of the students, even my kids, they're like, well, which book do I pick up, Dad? Do I pick up Crossfire? Oh, hell no, don't pick up Crossfire, your first book at age 10. You need to kind of go back a little bit and have a little bit more of an overall view. But, the one thing is that I headed some of the students that I've spoke at, at high schools, and not to go back to comic books, but there was one called Frame 313. There was another one that they took stuff straight out of Crossfire by Jim Mars and made it into a comic book. And once the kids, got a copy of that and read it, then they had all kinds of questions. I'm not saying that, obviously I do tattoos. I'm an artist on that aspect, but I'm not going to sit there. I don't think I'd have the foresight to sit down and write a comic book, but I wish somebody sure as hell would, or we could maybe work on something together. That's an idea. I like the app because we can reach the younger kids and kind of give them a starting point of where they go to, and then maybe ease them into where we're going into books that are specials. I mean, the way I see it is, we're all researchers, but I kind of look at it like, okay, you go to a general practitioner, and then you've got all of your speakers that are your specialists. Well, that's what we are. I mean, we've got some, as far as history, or as far as history teachers go, and people that went out and spoke in groups to kids, we can pretty well give an overall view in hour or 2 hours of kind of here's what happened, and then let me refer you to if you want to find out about like JFK in Vietnam, well, you go to Dr. Newman. You want to find out about Ed Hoffman, you'd go to to Brian and Casey. Just examples. I mean, you've got your general practitioner researchers, and you've got your specialty doctor researchers. You've got that's kind of where we're going with it. But we that's one thing I liked about when I did my first set of blog posts for the Project JFK website. Brian, myself, and Casey, we all sit down and said, okay, these are our top 10 or top 25 books that have the best information where you should go to start your research at.
I think it's David. I mean, the issue is that, and I guess really Dan, is that you have to kind of, what do you mean by like a generalized book? Because it's one thing to talk about what the Warren Commission found or what the HSCA found, like the evidence about the assassination and the pros and cons about it. And for something like that, Tink Thompson's 6 Seconds in Dallas is still to me the best simple book for people to read. But when you start getting into theories of who might have done it, boy, that's really dense. And it's really hard, I think, to find one source because people have different theories. So I think if you're just strictly talking about the evidence and what was found, what was concluded, that's one thing. But if you are looking for a resource that's sort of trying to explain the various types of possible assassins, that's a harder thing to look for.
I was just curious because, my natural inclination, just because it's my tendency to support the work of people like David Talbot and Jim Douglas, is, to provide, JFK and the Unspeakable or The Devil's Chessboard to various people who are interested in aspects that tie in with the assassination that have, a perspective that, questions, potential government involvement. It happens that in New Orleans, a little kid who's a 10-year-old kid who's a friend of mine, became so enraptured with this book, which I'm sure some of you may question, but Dr. Mary's Monkey, which was, you know, by Ed Haslam. And anyway, he's read it 5 times. And it reminds me that, you know, there is a way in. Now, this is very difficult material for young people. So I was a little shocked that a 10-year-old kid would get into it. I'm more thinking, you know, 15, 16, 17, 18, when you're aware, if you were doing lectures or even college age, you know, just would those books by Talbot or Douglas or others be appropriate books that would kind of get somebody connected with it? I was just struck by how this one book had captured this kid's interest. And part of it is the storyline is interesting, and it is a New Orleans angle, and the kid is from New Orleans. So, you know, I just thought someone might know a book that has particular interest.
I was 14 when I read 6 Seconds. I was 14 when I read 6 Seconds in Dallas, and that was, to me, the thing about that book was it was the first book that had the images of the Zapruder film, right? And it had lots of pictures. It was well written. That to me, and then I also read Mark Lane's book, but that was really more complicated because he was writing as a lawyer, basically a brief for the innocence of Oswald. So I still think 6 Seconds in Dallas is, for a teenager, is a great book. I also agree with you that Jim Douglas, if a person is more interested in history, putting the assassination in context, that is a great book as well. And if you really, I don't know, Breach of Trust is a fascinating book, but it might be too much detail for a teenager, although I think for a college kid, it would be appropriate because, I mean, that's the best takedown of the Warren Commission, in my opinion, Breach of Trust.
Well, part of this is tied into the idea that back in the 70s, when HSCA and Church Committee was, you know, basically in the news, you had a bunch of people who were going around, and I've interviewed a few of them, going around to college campuses and lecturing on the subject. And
Rusty something, what was his name? He came to Rutgers.
Well, there are a few different ones. And then at one of the conferences, a couple of people who were college professors came up to me when I gave a talk about the TRC, brief talk, and said, we'd love to have somebody come to the college. And so, you know, I think the idea is these, you know, intimate group meetings where you're talking about specific or, you know, certain topics are great for insiders. But, you know, part of the idea is you figure out how to engage a public, not just youth, but generally public who isn't really fully connected with it. And, you know, maybe college campus tour could happen somewhere down the road.
Sylvia Maher's book is a pretty good book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome
Yes.
book.
Very good
Yes.
book.
You cannot.
Yes. I forgot that one.
That's the best book, and I think Conspiracy. You know, Anthony Summers' book is also good for
Yes.
generic research, just for somebody to start with. I think that. I mean, I didn't grow up with that book. I grew up with Garrison's book and with Crossfire. Those were the first two books I
Actually,
read.
you're right. I would put Sylvia Maher the top of the list, and
Yeah.
then Tink Thompson.
I agree. That's
Yeah.
the best book, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, I would start off my class by first of all, you know, giving them background on JFK and the whole thing. But then I said, okay, now I know some of you people have been online, but I showed them the best copy of the Zapruder film that I had. And I gave them several questions. I said, I don't want you to talk in and with another. I want you to write down what you think you are seeing and what you are hearing. Of course, there's no sound to this. And I would ask my students, how many shots did you hear? How many shots did you see? What type of reaction did you see? And it was amazing. I always have maybe one or two kids that will sit back and say, well, I saw 3. I go, really? It's the first time you've seen the film? No, I've watched it. So of course, we had to sift those people out, but most people only saw 1 shot. And there's a handful of them that saw 2, and hardly any of them saw 3. And so we would discuss that. And then somebody says, well, I heard 3 shots. I said, there's no sound. How did you hear 3 shots? You know, God. So then we broke down to testimony where I said, okay, we have eyewitnesses and ear witnesses that said they heard from 0 to 10 shots. And they go, 10 shots. I said, well, let's go back and look at the film again. So, and I know Robert Groden and also Tink Thompson are using the Zapruder film as a clock. And so that's what I did in my classroom. But that's how we started out. And as we looked at this, I said, is there anything, do you see the reaction of Jackie Kennedy? They go, no, we're not looking at Jackie Kennedy. Wow. So now, you know, and after 3 days of nothing but watching this film and watching different aspects of the film, I got the kids hooked. I didn't really want to get them hooked, but I wanted them to ask the question, well, what about this? What about that? And it creates more people's questioning about what is going on than anything else. And so it gets them into the books.
Can I change the topic for a sec? I have a question. If any of you guys have read or very knowledgeable about Rolando Otero Hernandez, does that ring a bell to anyone?
I've heard the name, but
Anti-Castro Cuban that was in and around a lot of this stuff. I just thought someone might have.
I've got a few files if you want them.
Yeah, that would be great.
Larry Hancock mentions that name quite a bit in his new book.
Part of the idea is we're trying to identify the most important living witnesses, whether they're willing to speak or not. You know, the ones that can provide significant input. You know, with the idea that in a truth and reconciliation, you know, setting where they're not going to be penalized or sent to jail or executed or whatever. And in the spirit of that, would they come forward potentially, especially if they were given some kind of safe haven? You know, so part of it is who's still living. Another one who I think may still be living is Homer Echeverria. And I'm curious about.
Gil Frazier's still alive.
Yeah.
Damn it, Brian.
Oh, wait, now we've already talked about it. Never mind. We've already talked about it. Never
Well, he
mind.
may be alive. We're not quite sure about his, never mind.
Not worthy of a trip to Texas.
I tell you what, one of the ideas that I have, and it's just an idea right now. I'm just going to throw it out there just to throw it out there. But there was a movie that came out, and I know I've talked to Casey about this before, but there was a movie that came out a few years back with Dennis Quaid, Forrest Whitaker, called Vantage Point. And it's about assassination. And the gist of it is they replay the assassination from the different viewpoints of you know, everybody that was down there that day in the square where this happened at. And one thing that I don't know if it's a project I'll tackle or not. I'm thinking about it, but what would be a hell of an idea? And I think about the only way to really do it is probably use the technology. And I'll talk to Larry Rivera about this a little bit. You know, I think the fact of taking the testimony, whether it's video testimony, whether it is you know, testimony that's been in documents, in affidavits, and actually show the vantage point from where that person was at, you know, and tie that in as far as, you know, being able to use it as a teaching tool, like towards the younger generation. It's one thing to say, okay, well, I saw this, you know, I saw, you know, a bucket of blood being thrown out, what it looked like, or I saw someone on the knoll. Well, the fact of it is, when you know, first researchers, whether they're young adults, whether they are, you know, grown adults, they get in, they're like, okay, they hear the different things that everybody talks about of what they witnessed, but is kind of going back to the Cutler map. You know, you can look them up on the Cutler map and see where their name is on the map. But being able to actually go, okay, here's their viewpoint from where they were at. This is what I saw. You know, getting a chance to actually go, okay, break it down into almost making a movie of it, or a video presentation of it, going, okay, this person saw this, and then we show like either the Zephyr film or one of the other films, and bring it into the fact of going, okay, this is what we have in historical as far as, you know, what we see. But the person that was an eyewitness said they saw this. Getting a chance to maybe break that down into making it into I don't know if we want to call it a Project JFK movie, but you know, by breaking it down to where we could kind of use that idea, or maybe say, okay, well, here's what the person's saying, and here's what the action would look like. Now, I'm not saying we're trying to do this to alter history in any way, shape, or form, but we're trying to give a visualization of what that person is saying they saw.
Didn't some network or some cable show do that one time? They had the photographers and movie people all positioned in the supposedly where they were and showed their vantage point. I remember seeing that, but I don't remember what it was. Probably History Channel, so it was biased as hell. But I think that's been done.
Yeah, Brad, I want to do it with, okay, when you get into History Channel or Discovery Channel, we're basically gonna pretty well get just the one-sided viewpoint. Well, and then they lead back on Oswald had to have done it. A group like ours, where we're just trying to find the truth out, you know, okay, we go with the aspect going, okay, this is, you know, it could be, it's not just the normal, you know, group of people that they always bring on going, okay, like, you know, Gene Hill or, you know, Mary Mormon, but we bring in the viewpoint. It's like, you know, the story of Ed Hoffman. You know, up until a few years ago when I made a commercial for JFK Custom Tours, Robin Brown's company, where they take people down into Dealey Plaza and let them ride in the motorcade car, well, a replica car. The fact it was a lot of people, you know, read Beyond the Fence Line and were able to see still shots, but when they saw it in video form of, you know, me and Ed Hoffman's spot and the car coming underneath the bridge, and they say, well, most people say, oh, well, Ed couldn't have saw what he saw. I showed in that video, you can plainly see that he could have seen down into that car and saw what he saw. And up until that point, you know, we really didn't have that. You know, we had in The Men Who Killed Kennedy, we see him on the bridge pointing over, but we didn't actually have the car come right underneath the bridge and you could look down in it. So what I'm going with on this fact, you know, this weird ass statement of mine, is the fact that would it be nice if we were able to take each eyewitness account and somehow create either digitally in a Blender program like Larry uses, or, you know, a video format, and then put the actual video of that person or their testimony and create a vantage point movie or presentation for the JFK assassination, but not have it be from the History Channel or Discovery or Nova. You know, I'm not saying those guys aren't, you know, great places to, you know, make entertainment shows for us and information shows, but maybe something we do it on of a viewpoint from the researcher's perspective, going, okay, we're just tracking down the case and this is where the vantage points are, and show that to, you know, the younger people or people that are just getting into this. And maybe it might make it a little bit more audio visual. That's my expertise, audio visual stuff, to get them to understand it. So instead of reading a book of like an overall general effect, take them right to the eyewitnesses, try to show what they saw and from their vantage point.
You know, several years ago, and I know it was several years ago, but the Vietnam veterans put out a movie called Letters Home. And then they, of course, their point of view was, why were we there in Vietnam to begin with? But at the same time, all these people had died and blah, blah, blah. something that David's talking about, encompassing something like that, along with the movie Vantage Point. And if you've never seen Vantage Point, take a look at it. It'll drive you nuts, primarily because when they say, well, we're gonna roll this film back. Well, they keep rolling the film back, and I just sat there and I said, God, this is great, because this looks like my classroom at the college level. I just kept rolling this thing back and rolling it back, and you get a different vantage point. But you know, and until you can actually see what a vantage point is, it'd be like standing in a classroom. And I would always have my students, wherever they're sitting, I said, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to stand up. Do you get a different point of view? All right, now stand on your seat. All right, do you get a different point of view? Okay, can you stand on your desk? So they stood on their desk, and I said, a difference between 3 or 4 feet, just looking around the room, gives you a different vantage point. If our students can visualize that, what could we possibly do in the future with this technology, and maybe put actors and so on and so forth? I know it's a lot of work, a lot of time, but it would certainly explain a lot of the different people's points of view, and especially from researchers' point of views also.
I want to, hey, how you guys doing? Finally.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, we talked about the Cutler map last time we got together. That session at the end was quite interesting that David was talking about. It was like going back and forth. It was a little crazy, and time just flew by. But
Yep.
Can you guys see this here on the screen?
Yes.
Yep, we can see it.
That's the complete Cutler map, and which I had been looking for. And as you all know, we have always seen this one portion on which covers Elm Street and the TSBD and Daltex and whatever. But the other side, I had never been able to find. And of all places, I was thumbing through Richard Trask's book, Pictures of the Pain. All right, can you see that?
Yeah.
And of all places, it's on the inside of the cover. All right, and you see that? There you go. It's on the inside. A copy of the full map, of the Cutler map. And so what I did was I went into Photoshop and I did a photo merge of the image, and this is the result. and what's interesting is that, as we all know, it's the perfect mirror image. The pergola structures and everything are perfect mirror images of each other, as Dealey Plaza is laid out the topography. All right, so I found that to be quite interesting. If anybody needs a copy of this, I can go ahead and email it. But again, this is exactly what David was talking about, where all the photographers are placed in exactly the position that they were. As you can see, Alges is in the street, not on the infield grass, as seen in the Zapruder film. And so that's one of the images I wanted to share. And another one that I wanted to share, and I wanted to bring Larry into this one. Can you see this here with Foreign Policy Association?
Yep.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is the one smoking document that Clay Shaw would have just done cartwheels for, okay? Because what this is, and this came out in the new documents, and I haven't seen anybody even talk about this or even try to analyze it except me and a couple of other researchers. And this is from the Foreign Policy Association, and notice who's the program chairman of this. Clay Shaw, right? And Jesse Core was his press relations chairman. Okay, now if you read some of Joan Mellon's stuff, she identifies Jesse Core as CIA. But as we all know, Garrison went through a whole couple of years trying to prove that Clay Shaw was CIA. Well, here's a document that proves that he was, because what this document says here is this is a great soiree that they are throwing for guess who? Deputy Director Charles P. Cabell of the Central Intelligence Agency. And the date, okay, the press release date is 27 April 61, which is only, 8 days after the Bay of Pigs. But the event is going to be on May the 9th. All right, Wednesday, May the 9th in the Grand Ballroom of the Sheraton Charles Hotel. I mean, big time here. All right. And as you scroll down, General Cabell's subject will be communist science, okay, because that's what these people were into, Inca and all these other organizations in New Orleans, where New Orleans was that great gateway, you know, for all these companies that were multinationals doing business in Central America and making all these mega billions of dollars in profits, okay? And so this document gives the entire background. In fact, it goes back a couple of generations on the Cabell family. And it mentions at the time Earl Cabell as the mayor of Dallas. And guess who's the program chairman who will introduce Cabell is Clay Shaw. All right. And the document goes on for 2 or 3 pages, and they give, you know, Cabell's brother's grandfather, Brigadier General William Tiger Cabell, was mayor of Dallas around the turn of the century, and blah, 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 blah. So I want to ask Larry if this document would have helped Jim Garrison in his case against trying to prove that Clay Shaw was indeed CIA.
Well, I mean, what does it mean by saying CIA? It could demonstrate he has some relationship with the CIA, as opposed to saying he's actually a member of the CIA. Well, what else does it say down here? Let's see, keep scrolling down. You know, you have to also look at the background. I just Googled this association. I'm trying to read about it. But
the Foreign Policy Association?
Yeah. Because there may be some affiliations. Certainly, look, it certainly gets, it's more than what he had before.
Right.
You know, he said, I have no affiliation with all. And we subsequently learned that he did do some work for the CIA, whether he was an agent or an informant or something, we don't know. But it helps make a better connection. I don't know. I don't think it says he's a member of the CIA or worked for the CIA, but at least it's one more step along the way that would have helped.
Yes.
Well, it goes on a couple of pages. Like I said,
Yeah.
This is just the first.
Just send an email that to me. I'll
Sure.
take a look at it. Yeah.
Sure.
By the way, did you get were you able to get in touch with John Orr?
No, nobody's contacted me at all.
Oh, because every time I copied you on an email to him, it bounced back for your email. So I don't know what. I'll just give him your phone number. Let's do it that way.
So there's another document that, and I wish Doug Horn was still in attendance here. It has to do with Sylvia Duran's original statement, and this is after Jeremy Gunn has gone back and forth for probably a year and a half trying to obtain this document, and finally. This letter from the CIA to the ARRB just throws in the towel and says, despite the concerted search described below, no such statement has ever been found, and we cannot confirm that it ever existed. All right. Rather, the various descriptions in agency files of a statement or record of an interrogation, quote unquote, probably refer to the same event, a 10-page report in Spanish written by the Mexican police as a record of their interrogation of Duran. And then we go back, and then we go to the next page of the document right here, and they flat out admit no Duran statement was found. No document which could be called a Duran statement was found. So that sort of leads us back to square one on Sylvia Duran, you know, because if this supposed statement that, you know, where she affirms that she had all these interactions with Lee Oswald and that she had an affair with Lee Oswald, the whole house of cards just begins to tumble down. And also, when you take into consideration that 3 Mexican presidents, consecutive Mexican presidents, were CIA assets, confirmed CIA assets with their own cryptonyms and everything, and who worked very closely with Win Scott, and where one of them stood as best man for Win Scott's 3rd wedding in Mexico City in 1962. And we even have the video of the reception of that event. So it's sort of like forces us to reinterpret everything that happened in Mexico City. And that's something that Bill Simpich and I have been, I mean, he's been working on his end and I've been working on my end on that. And because like I said, we said before, State Secrets is a very, very important book, you know, to read, but it's something it's not for everybody. You have to know about the case because Bill gets into very, very specifics in that book. And you really have to know the playing field, you know, that he's presenting. So, but these new documents, my point is that these new documents are forcing us to reinterpret and rewrite the entire Mexico City history of, you know, and I personally believe that that Lee was impersonated, and that he never went to Mexico City, and that there are other documents that have come out that support that thesis, and they will continue. Again, you know, when you have these 3 Mexican presidents and they control the DFS, you know, the police and the people that were interrogating Silva Duran and running the investigation, and the same ones that received the 3 warrant commissioners in Mexico City in April of '64. I'm talking about Slauson, Coleman, and Willens. And the liaison who worked with them, you know, when they got to Mexico City was none other than Luis Echeverria, who was very much involved in this whole thing with Win Scott there in Mexico City. So that's what I have today.
I've just added 2 documents into the main chat line about Shaw, Garrison, and the Central Intelligence Agency. That's just what I quickly could find. I remember also that John Mellon had a document where Shaw was described as a highly paid asset, basically, in that document. He's described.
I was trying to find where, because Joan Mellon cites, he says that Jesse Core was CIA, but I'm trying to find the document, how, you know, she just says that she doesn't support it with any evidence, or doesn't cite any specific document. And that's something that, but still, this one that has turned out sort of leads you in the direction that all of those people were CIA connected.
Well, there was documentation that came out about Shaw's role in the CIA. It's just didn't necessarily carry forward through how long he was working. I think they admitted to his work in the 50s. I will tell you that I met a guy who worked for the city of New Orleans, and who told me that he used to meet with Clay Shaw, and he described it as Clay Shaw had a huge office on the CIA floor at the Trade Mart, and the city provided the floor free of rent to the CIA. So, you know, I don't know how legitimate that statement is, but he certainly made it.
Just Larry, just a comment in support of what you said. Oswald made 2 appearances before the Texas Employment Commission, one on October 3rd, and I think the week before, either the 26th or 27th of September. Of course, all those records were confiscated and replaced by photostatic copies, but the Mexico City timeline right out of the water. So,
right, and also another. Let me see if I can get this one up here, because this one really blew me away. It had to do with Warren DeBruys. We all know that he was the special agent in charge there in New Orleans. Okay, and And now that we have seen the Orestes Peña document which was a classified HSCA testimony that he gave in 1978, and the revelations there just blew my mind, because it shows you why all this was kept under wraps. You know, where Orestes Peña, he was the owner of that Havana bar down, downtown there in New Orleans, and he saw Lee interacting with not only FBI, CIA, ATF, customs agents, you name it. Okay, so he had firsthand knowledge of Lee's associations, with these agencies, and where De Bruys had him as an informant, because as New Orleans was that gateway for all these Cubans coming and going, and there was always this situation of Cubans, true exiles, versus agents that Castro was sending out of Cuba to intermingle and bring back, back and forth information on what was going on in the anti-Castro community. So Orestes was a very important informant for De Bruys, and Orestes told the HSCA in this classified testimony that De Bruys, when Lee Oswald left New Orleans, De Bruys went with him before the assassination. All right. And he even went over and to the bar, and he told him, look, we're not going to be talking anytime soon, because, I've been transferred to Dallas.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, so then you got that situation going. And then I find this, and this is what I wanted to share here real quick. Okay. This is a report of De Bruys where he says, they have full contact with Lee Oswald. They know where he's going. They know where he's been. And they're talking about here, we'll maintain contact with Cuban sources for any indication of additional activity on the part of subject organization, talking about the Fair Play for Cuba committee here at the top here. But notice the date. The report is dated 10/25/63, and it covers August the 9th, which happens to be the same day of the fracas down there on Canal Street with de Bringuier, okay, between August and 15 of October. Well, that time span covers the supposed Mexico City trip, all right? So if we study this document and we go and we look at the first page, it's supposed to be a 40-page document. And maybe Larry and his people and Jim Lazaro, whoever, can try to force the other 38 pages of this document, because they're nowhere to be found. All right. It's only 2 pages of the document.
Yeah, send us that. Send me that as well. By the way, you noticed that it said that I guess it was a request from New Orleans to the Bureau on 8/23.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this is the second page, and of the document, and it shows you all the sources, which were the informants who provided the information. And at the top of the list is the postal inspector of New Orleans, Lou Robertson. Okay, and then down here you have Jesse Core as one of the others right down here, and this guy here, Orlando Piedra, okay, who at that time was already in New Orleans. This guy was the head of what in Cuba was the parallel FBI down there. So and this guy was deeply involved with Batista, all right? And he goes and he ends up in New Orleans, okay? And he's informing on Lee Oswald, all right? So this is a very, very interesting document that has surfaced. And this is all in the new documents. This is why people say there's no smoking guns. There are a lot of pieces of the puzzle that you just got to know where they fit and how to, play around with them, So this is a document. And again, it's supposed to be 40 pages, but we only have 38 of the 48. 38 of the 40. So this is something that...
Larry, do you know who the Metropolitan Crime Commission of New Orleans is?
No, no, I don't.
There was a lot of correspondence between ARB and them for De Bruys and
Yeah, De
Vanderbilt
Bruys.
records.
Hmm. Well, De Bruys, interestingly enough, when Garrison went after Shaw, he tried to subpoena De Bruys. De Bruys was sent to Washington, and then after that, he was sent to South America. He ends up, of all places, in Puerto Rico in 1975 as the special agent in charge there for 2 or 3 years. And it just so happens that right after he left, they had that case of the Cerro Maravilla, where the FBI had these informants lure these independentistas up to this mountain to try to supposedly blow up a communications tower. And in reality, what happened was that they were arrested and they were executed. All right, but the informant was actually he had infiltrated these groups, independentista groups. So it's actually the same pattern of a Lee Oswald, going and intermingling, and trying to get these kids, to do things that they ordinarily would have never done.
Yeah.
All right. So very, very interesting, this thing about De Bruys.
Yeah. Dan, do you know if have you heard, since you live in New Orleans, about the Metropolitan Crime Commission?
Oh yeah, no, that's a major part. I mean, that was they still exist.
Now, this is it, right?
There
This is
was,
what we're- yeah. Then it would be totally different. And I go, I thought we had decided that this is what we're going to do. She goes,
Hey,
well, I just changed my mind. I just didn't tell you.
William, you got to mute. Okay. What'd you say, Dan?
yeah, no, it's been around for a long time. It overlapped. They were established because of the strength and the concern about the power of people like Marcello in New Orleans, and so there was battles because internally they thought that Garrison was protecting the mob in his investigation, and there was a bit of a fair amount of tension there, and it's obviously the Garrison investigation raised a lot of hackles on the part of the government, and for good reason. I mean, bad reason, but good reason in a certain sense, because he was going after some, he was chasing some bears into caves, as a friend of mine said. The idea was, and I actually am supposed to go and meet with the guy who's the head of the current head of the Metropolitan Crime Commission to see if they have records, which, so much of this stuff has been destroyed. Harry Connick, who was the DA after Garrison, tried to get rid of everything. He wasn't successful getting rid of everything. And so there were surviving documents that a lot of them, but only, I think Jim DiEugenio thinks about 40% of Garrison's documents survived. But yeah, no, I think that is a potentially interesting source of material.
I'll send you the letter. And actually, there was a lot of stuff. I think they went to court about, what's his name, Connick? I think ARB had to go to court with him.
Yeah, well, some guy that worked for him, he told them, the guy, to destroy the files. The guy took them home and basically made them available, I think, to the ARB behind Connick's back, which is lucky.
Yeah, I have a memo from '96 that they're in litigation with Connick.
That's correct about the ARB. I managed to pick up a lot of those documents saved by the ARB on Garrison, and I scanned those in. If you want them, just raise your hand.
He was claiming he was taking a very narrow interpretation of what an assassination record is.
Hey guys, I'm gonna interject here real quick. Larry showed the Cutler drawing, and I want to interject and throw something else in here. So let me hit share screen. Now, some of you guys might remember this from 30 years ago, because it's been 30 years since it came out. But there was a researcher, and I'm sure he's still around. I'll do some checking on this, but his name is Craig, and I think it's Chacon or Saccone. He did a schematic that was basically 2 feet by 3 feet, big ass map, like a blueprint. And I remember this was released back in '91. Well, he's done an update back in 2010 from what I was reading on. And I'll just.
I think I've got that in
It
blueprint.
basically looks like a blueprint drawing, but the nice part about it is where there's numbers on each spot, including the Texas School Depository Building and the entryway. Over here on the right side is the list of 353 eyewitnesses where they were all located at, kind of going back to the vantage point part. But this is on jfklancer.com/Chacon/projects HTML. This was dated 11 years ago. No, I'm sorry. 11 years ago. Announcing the long anticipated re-release of the schematic of Dealey Plaza and the master list of eyewitnesses. He's got 153 pages, perfect bound, soft cover book. Descriptions of 460 witnesses, including majority of occupants of the motorcade. And I was just reading the fact he did a schematic of Oak Cliff, which is no longer available, but I guess he has Xerox copies of it. So I'm going to reach out to the guy and see if he's still around. But when I was looking on here, it shows a email and also a phone number. So I'm gonna after tomorrow or Monday, I'll reach out to the guy. But I guess you can get the schematic and master list shown on here, like $70 plus shipping, and maybe find out how updated it is now with information that we have of if he's got people in the same spots. But you guys might remember that. And I like the Cutler drawing, but I remember Casey had this in the classroom when I first got into this back in the late 80s. And I remember seeing it. So like I say, I'll reach out and see if the map is still available, if the book is available. And maybe you guys might want to get a copy of it. But I know it was expertly done. It's like I say, it's like looking at a blueprint. So I'll reach out to that and see what I can come up with. But I know we've
Good
got
stuff.
the color drawing.
Good
So
stuff.
Well, my copy is poster size
yeah,
and it's rather creased because it's been folded up for God knows how long. If you can't get hold of it, because I recognize that site, it was up 5 years ago already, so I don't know how on the ball they are. But if need to be, I will photographically reproduce it. I'll probably iron the paper a bit and get it as flat as possible, and then yeah.
Thanks, Bart.
These are hardcore creases. So, and if I manage to do that, I will pin it on a wall and take a reproduction of it, because it does look like a blueprint because it's all in blue ink as such. But it's yeah, it's cool. It's big. It's quite big. So
what I liked about this, I remember back in I know Casey had one. I Xerox, I didn't have a Xerox big enough to do it on the machine that they had at Kinko's. They didn't have enough room, so I had to take it in pieces. But my daughter wanted to see, she wanted to basically take the map like Dora the Explorer type of shit and go down and see what she could see. But it was a teaching tool for her, and a teaching tool for kids, students that would go down there to Dealey Plaza and actually go, okay, so I'm standing basically where this eyewitness was, and by having the list of everybody, I guess in the book he goes into full detail about those eyewitnesses. But I haven't read the book. I don't have a copy of it, but I will definitely check into it. And if nothing else, I know he was connected with JFK Lancer, because that's how I just looked the search up online. But if nothing else, maybe I can get a hold of Deborah Conway and see if she has a contact information for the guy, this late into the game. But
Brian, you still online?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have a copy of that?
Yeah, I've got, remember when we didn't have a lot of slides or PowerPoint, we had the actual visual. I've got,
It's about 3 foot by 4 foot, isn't it? Like
yeah, I've got both of them.
Yeah.
well, definitely, next time we get together, Brian, I want to take a look at that. But yeah, I didn't know that he did a Oak Cliff one, and I guess he was working on an RFK schematic too. So
yeah, it's the 10th and Patton area is well done. It's I think it's more detailed than the Dealey Plaza because it's a smaller area and he can make it more specific. So
Let's see if we can get copies of that and give that to Brooks. Brooks will probably need something like that.
Well, I could make it available to Brooks for a price.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
Okay.
like I say, after I contact him, maybe I can bring him on and he can talk about the book and about the map, seeing kind of where his. I know, like I say, it was originally released in '91. Looks like 2010 he did an update. So maybe 30 years since it came out. Maybe he's done some more updates that we don't know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, I'll reach out on behalf of everybody and see if he's still around and if the links are still good for people if they do want to order a copy of it, because I like to support fellow researchers. So maybe we can see if it's still available.
David, before I cut out of here, I wanted to show you were talking about your pictures that you took from Ed's position. I've got those, and I'll just share those with everybody just to give you an idea. If you didn't know what they look like, I've got that.
Yeah, go ahead and show that, Brian.
Can you see that?
Yeah, go ahead and increase it there.
Yeah. So there's as the car comes out from underneath the overpass. And then there it is right in front of him, right in front of where you were standing. Yeah, I mean, you can clearly, and obviously this is not the same configuration, but you can see it's an open top vehicle. You can see clearly who's in there, how many people are in there, what they're doing. There it is right in front of you.
Didn't Harry Livingston do something similar? That he had this limo going through Dallas
Yeah.
in the
Well,
90s.
I filmed that. He sent me down there, and God, I don't even remember how long ago it was, but he sent me down there, and I had it. I've got the same Zapruder film camera, the same film. We did that about this, and Ron Brown did that about 30 trips through the plaza.
I think it's on YouTube, because I think I found it in Livingston's archives.
Yeah.
And reproduced it on digital.
Yeah, he never did. And the good thing about Harrison, he didn't ever pay me or give me copies of the film, so I have no idea where they are.
Well, I tell you what, if anybody wants to see something, if you go on to the Project JFK website and go to the video tabs, go up at the top and click on videos. And if you scroll all the way almost to the bottom, you're going to see one that says JFK commercial. If you watch this video, it actually showed. Well, it's a video I did basically for his business of having the limo rides. But what I did with it was like what's showing on the screen right now. This is the viewpoint from Abraham Zapruder. So I did the vantage point from where Zapruder was standing at on the pergola, and then this is on top of the triple underpass, basically kind of right where I had in my presentation the shooter on the bridge. Is actually, this is South Knoll side, but when you fast forward a little bit, it actually as soon as the internet picks up here, it actually split screens, and what you see on one side, come on, damn internet. On the left side is the video I took from Zapruder's side, but on the right side, I actually have a camera in the car as he's driving in the right seat of basically kind of where JFK would be at. And I understand it's not the stretch limo, but it gives you a vantage point of looking from the outside on the left and looking from the right side of coming from the car. This is when I went down there and filmed the, come on.
What is the picture on the left?
The picture on the left is me standing on the, in Zapruder's spot, filming the car coming around. But then on the right side, you actually see the, the viewpoint from inside the car.
From where?
Hey, David, you've stood on that pedestal, right?
Yeah.
What I noticed is it's not flat at all. It's sort of like you know, like a pyramid sort of tapers off, you know, like that.
It's like
And
a
it's
diamond.
not easy. It's not really easy to stand up there, you
Right.
know, like that.
Wasn't she holding him up, his secretary?
Right.
But you know, that's always bothered me. The guy admits he's got vertigo, but why would you climb up?
No, and it's not easy to climb up there,
No,
Brian.
hell, I couldn't do it last year. I'm an old man.
No, I'm
Yeah.
6 foot, I'm 6'5", and I had a hard time getting up on that thing.
Exactly.
So I'm trying to figure out how he got up there and
Yeah.
then how she got up there.
Yeah.
Of all the places you could film from, because there's nobody really in the area.
No.
Why do you
Yeah.
get up on that spot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you put yourself in a position if you've got vertigo? Hell, vertigo, you walk up a two or three steps and you're going to be dizzy. You're up 4 feet off the ground. What the hell would you do that for?
Yeah, it's not easy to get up there.
No. We can
Yeah, if
debate.
you
We can
guys-
debate that all day.
But yeah, if you guys get a chance and you want to click on a video, I mean, like I say, I know it's a commercial for Robin's business, but it
Can I
gives-
just share something?
Yeah,
Sorry, I interrupted. I do apologize. But it was still about the Zapruder thing, and I just got something running that I think I'll put it on full screen. Give me a minute. I think this is a reenactment.
That's JFK's view.
That's from, yeah, it's from all kinds of views. I don't know if Brian did this, but this is the movie I've got from Harry Livingston's
No,
archives.
no, Bart, I had my butt planted on that pedestal for 25
Right.
passes. Oh, I'd never seen this before. I didn't do this one.
Okay. It's kind of cool though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what he sent me down there for, was to verify that the splices the obvious splices that we see weren't done in camera. I mean, I knew that going down there, but none of the versions that I had 25 passes ever split like that, ever any jumped or anything. I was a continuous. As soon as the car turned the corner, I started the button and didn't release it till it was disappeared, and those splices didn't appear.
That was part of that major divorce between he and Robert Groden over the splices in the film. It's a lot more than that, but I'm sure the splices in the film.
So
Yeah, mine were. I know those were mine because mine would have been a little bit better quality.
yeah, it's very shaky. Now it's gotten really shaky. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm not going to bore you. We're going to put the link in the chatter box if you want to watch all 18 minutes of it. So. But they have filmed it from many, many angles, though. It's kind of interesting. That looks like a better replica by the looks of it.
Are you talking
Okay.
about the replica of the limo?
I'll shut it down and I'll put the link in so you can all watch it. That tiny little button.
well, I just found the video on my computer instead of trying to deal with the internet. But like I'm standing on Zapruder's perch right there, and as you see the car come around the corner, you know, this will actually, you know, from his viewpoint, I'm basically just kind of looking over where, you know, the pedestal is where Zapruder would be at, and I actually had Jason standing up there as the car's getting ready to go underneath the bridge. But what you're seeing on the left is Zapruder's perspective. What you're seeing on the right is what, you know, Kennedy's perspective would have been. And then the part that Brian was showing still shots from for the Ed Hoffman viewpoint, I'll just speed this up. Cars going underneath the bridge, and this is being filmed from Ed Hoffman's perspective. And I even had Robin kind of slow the car down for a second, and then you can see it speeding away up onto Stemmons Freeway. But, you know, I basically just kind of went back and looked at it going, okay, what would it be like to, you know, to film from, you know, doing a split screen format where you see Zapruder's film from his perspective and then from inside the car. And I'll be honest, even though the car had really shitty brakes that I hope he got fixed by now, we damn near got thrown through the back seat to the front seat. No seat belts. I guess those are optional. Or we sure as hell couldn't find them. But it was one of the creepiest feelings driving over the X in the middle of Elm Street in the open top limousine. And I'm even sitting there holding the camera going, man, this is some creepy shit right here. So, but if you get a chance, like I say, click it up on the website and you want to watch it a couple of times. Watch it because your eye will go try to be in both spots, left and right. Replay the video a couple of times and concentrate on what the left viewpoint is, and then look what's on the right viewpoint from the car. And I was actually going to do the we didn't have time for it, but I was actually going to do it from Love Field all the way through Dallas, through the motorcade, so you could actually see the different buildings up around. And I was going to do like a 360 camera, so you could see everything, high, low, in front, everything. We haven't gotten to that, and I may end up doing that with Robin in the future, but it was kind of cool just to, you know, be able to show.
It's a lot easier to do now because you just get a bunch of GoPros and you just mount them all over and you'll get every angle possible, basically.
Right.
So, yeah.
I know I did it one year when I went to Dallas. I was going down to do the conference for Deborah Conway, and I just took my video camera, stuck it up on my dash with some Velcro in my pickup truck, and drove the route the whole way. But, you know, you're looking at the world through a windshield and you hear the damn turn signal just clicking and the keys swinging. But hey, I still have the footage. But yeah, it was different doing it in the convertible. So.
Hey, David, if you use Brian again in the back of the car, make sure he wears a David Ferry toupee, will you?
Put those eyebrows in there too.
There you go. There you go.
We want to make sure he could actually see the head wound as it was, as opposed to his bald head.
Well, I tell you what's a funny anecdote is I had a JFK Halloween mask in my bag that day that I was going to give Brian and say, here, I know this. I didn't do it because I figured it would have been some really bad taste. But I said, you know, we could just have you wear the mask while you're sitting next to Heather Fear and drive through, you know, Dealey Plaza a few times with the JFK mask on. I'm sure it'll probably freak the shit out of a few people. But we didn't do it, and I kind of wish we had that in the outtakes just to throw it out there.
It would definitely be an improvement.
Well, Brian, take back that birthday present that you were going to send Larry. I swear to God.
Oh my God!
Don't put my name on it. I didn't pay her as much as you did.
So if I hear something in the mail that ticks, I shouldn't open it up, right?
Yeah, that would not be a good idea. No, definitely not.
Larry Rivera, thank you very much for those pictures and the maps. That'll probably bring us to a conclusion today, unless we have anything else going on.
Thanks, Case.
Well, I like to say, if I like to go with Casey there, we're coming on 4:00 Central Time. So if anybody doesn't have anything else to add, we can close out this part of the monthly meeting, and then we're going to have one again in 2 weeks. And if nothing else, maybe we can pick a few topics, and we'll just kind of stick to those topics.
I just want people to know that I put in the chat room the links to the various committees and also the registration page for the PIDB. So go to your chat and take a look if you want to register, or if you want to contact, go to the committee's page and see if you're members in Congress and the House of Representatives, or if you're a senator for the Homeland Committee, are on the committees.
Okay, thank you, Larry. And also the replay of this video will be uploaded to the website along with the chat log that you can download that has all the links and stuff in there. and that'll be done between now and Monday morning. So, and like I say, we will definitely have something going on for May 29th. So you'll want to get your tickets. It'll be posted on Monday. And we'll just kind of go from that aspect of it. And also be looking on the outlooks. We are going to have a November conference. It's going to have details coming. There'll be some under construction signs on the event page, but we'll get the date listed and pricing for the conference and all that. And then as we get speakers involved in who's going to speak over the next few months, those will be posted as we get verification that we have yeses. And other than that, I think we had a very successful journey meeting this month, and I look forward to seeing everybody in 2 weeks.
All right. Thanks a bunch.
Adios.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Good job, guys.
All right, everybody take care and stay safe and stay well.
See you later.
Bye-bye.